The security footage showed everything. At 2:47 a.m. on the worst night of Chicago's winter, a janitor carried the city's most powerful CEO out of Blackwood Global Tower and disappeared into a blizzard that should have killed them both. No ransom demand ever came. No scandal broke. Just silence. When Vanessa Blackwood finally returned to her executive suite 5 days later, her billionaire father asked only one question. Who is he? But Vanessa didn't answer, because explaining Ethan Carter meant admitting she'd felt something in his small suburban kitchen that 30 years of wealth and power never gave her: safety. Now, the most dangerous man in corporate America wants to meet the single father who saved his daughter's life. And Ethan Carter is about to learn that some acts of kindness cost more than anyone should have to pay. If you want to see how a janitor's one good deed changes everything, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in Blackwood Global Tower's 43rd floor hallway flickered at 2:15 a.m., casting shadows that made Ethan Carter's reflection look older than 32. He pushed his cleaning cart past another row of glass-walled offices where people made more in a day than he earned in 6 months. The wheels squeaked. They always squeaked. He'd asked maintenance to fix them twice, but maintenance didn't waste resources on overnight janitors. Ethan stopped at the executive break room and pulled out his supplies. Coffee stains on Italian marble countertops. Someone's half-eaten sushi going bad in the trash. A water ring on the mahogany table where some VP probably sealed $1 million deal that afternoon, while he was making Sophie mac and cheese in their kitchen that smelled like the landlord would never fix the ventilation. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen next door. Sophie had a nightmare. I got her back to sleep. She's okay. He typed back quickly. Thank you. I owe you. Mrs. Chen, you don't owe me anything. That little girl is an angel. Ethan put the phone away and sprayed down the counters. Sophie had nightmares 3 times this week. Always the same one. Her mom leaving again, walking out the door and never coming back. Sarah had been gone for 4 years now, and Sophie still wasn't over it. Maybe she never would be. Maybe some wounds didn't heal just because time passed. The building shuddered. Wind screamed against the windows. The weather report that morning said the blizzard would be bad. But this sounded worse than bad. This sounded like the kind of storm that made the news because people died in it. Ethan finished the break room and moved down the hallway. The executive wing was always his last stop. Bigger offices, more expensive furniture, more evidence that he was invisible to the people who worked here during daylight hours. He'd been cleaning this building for 3 years, and maybe 5 executives knew his name. The rest looked through him like he was part of the furniture. He turned the corner toward the executive elevators and stopped. Someone was sitting on the floor. Not sitting. Slumped. A woman in a business suit that probably cost more than his car, leaning against the wall beside the elevator bank with her head tilted back and her eyes closed. Dark hair falling across her face. One shoe off, the other still on. Ethan looked around. The hallway was empty. No security guards. No late-night executives burning the midnight oil. Just him and this woman who clearly shouldn't be unconscious on the floor at 2 a.m. He moved closer. Ma'am, you okay? She didn't respond. He knelt down beside her and immediately felt the heat radiating off her skin. Fever. High fever. Her face was flushed, her breathing shallow. When he touched her shoulder gently, she flinched but didn't open her eyes. Ma'am, I'm going to call someone. You need help. No. The word came out barely above a whisper. Her eyes cracked open. Gray eyes, unfocused and glassy with fever. No calls. Can't. He can't know. Can't know what? You need a hospital. No hospital. She tried to sit up straighter and nearly fell over. Ethan caught her shoulders. Please, if he finds out I'm sick, he'll use it. He'll say I'm weak. He'll take everything. Some shit, sis. Ethan had no idea what she was talking about, but the fear in her voice was real. Real enough that he recognized it. The same fear he'd heard in his own voice 4 years ago when Sarah left and he realized he was alone with a 2-year-old and no idea how to be enough for her. Okay, he said quietly. No calls. But you can't stay here. I just need a minute. You need more than a minute. When's the last time you ate? She didn't answer. Her eyes closed again. Ethan looked at her face and felt something click in his memory. He'd seen her before. Not in person, but on the elevator video screens that played company propaganda every morning. The ones that showed executive headshots and inspirational quotes about excellence and innovation. Vanessa Blackwood, CEO, daughter of the man who owned this tower and half the commercial real estate in Chicago. He was kneeling on the floor next to one of the richest women in America while she burned with fever and begged him not to call anyone. The smart thing would be to call security anyway. Let them handle it. Cover his ass and go back to cleaning toilets. He had Sophie to think about. He couldn't afford to lose this job over some executive's private breakdown. But she was sick, really sick, and she was alone. Ethan made a decision he knew was stupid even as he made it. Can you walk? I think so. My car's in the garage. I'm going to get you out of here. Her eyes opened again, trying to focus on his face. Why? Because nobody should be alone when they're this sick. Come on. He helped her stand. She was taller than he expected, even without the missing shoe. She leaned heavily against him as they moved toward the service elevator, the one the cleaning crew used, the one without cameras. Her breath was hot against his shoulder. Every few steps she stumbled, and he had to hold her tighter to keep her upright. The elevator took forever. When it finally arrived, he got her inside and pressed the button for the parking garage. The whole ride down, he kept expecting someone to stop them. Security, a night manager, someone who would ask what the hell he thought he was doing taking the CEO out of the building in the middle of the night. No one stopped them. The garage was freezing. Wind howled through the concrete levels, carrying snow that had already piled up against the walls. Ethan's 12-year-old Honda sat in the employee section covered in ice. He got Vanessa into the passenger seat and cranked the heat. She slumped against the window, eyes closed again. The drive to his house took 40 minutes instead of 20. The roads were a nightmare. Snow coming down so hard he could barely see past the hood. Other cars abandoned on the shoulder. Once he had to reverse and find another route because the main road was completely blocked. Vanessa didn't say anything the whole drive. A few times he glanced over to make sure she was still breathing. His house was dark when they pulled into the driveway. Small two-bedroom ranch in a neighborhood that used to be nice before the factory closed. The porch light was out again. He kept meaning to fix it. Getting Vanessa from the car to the front door was harder than getting her out of the building. The snow was knee-deep and she could barely stand. He ended up half carrying her up the steps, her weight against his side, his arm around her waist. The door swung open before he reached it. Mrs. Chen stood there in her bathrobe, eyes wide. Ethan, what happened? She's sick. I found her at work. She needs help. Mrs. Chen looked at Vanessa, then at Ethan, then back at Vanessa. For a second, he thought she might refuse. Tell him this was crazy. Tell him to take this rich woman to a hospital where she belonged. Instead, Mrs. Chen stepped aside. Bring her in. I'll make tea. They got Vanessa onto the couch. Mrs. Chen brought a thermometer, blankets, a glass of water. The thermometer read 103.2. Dangerous, but not quite hospital dangerous if they could bring it down. I'll watch her, Mrs. Chen said. You should check on Sophie, Ethan nodded and went down the hallway to Sophie's room. His daughter was asleep, dark curls spread across her pillow. One arm wrapped around the stuffed rabbit that was older than she was. The nightlight cast soft shadows across her face. She looked peaceful now. No nightmares at the moment. He stood in the doorway and wondered what the hell he'd just done. When he came back to the living room, Mrs. Chen had Vanessa sitting up enough to drink water. The older woman looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. This is the Blackwood woman, Mrs. Chen said quietly. From the tower. I've seen her on the news. Yeah. Ethan, you could lose your job. I know. You could lose more than your job if her father finds out. I know that too. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and patted his arm. Your mother would be proud. She raised you right. She moved toward the door, then paused. Call me if you need anything. I'm right next door. After she left, Ethan sat in the chair across from the couch and watched Vanessa sleep fitfully under the blankets. The fever made her restless. She kept shifting, murmuring things he couldn't make out. Once she said a name, Adrien, with enough pain in her voice that Ethan looked away. The storm rattled the windows. The heat kicked on with a sound like dying machinery. This house was falling apart slowly, one system at a time, and he couldn't afford to fix anything properly. Just patch jobs and prayers that everything held together until Sophie was old enough that he could work days instead of nights. Vanessa's eyes opened around 4 in the morning. She looked around the room with confusion, then fear, then something else when her gaze landed on him. Where am I? My house. You were sick. You asked me not to call anyone, so I didn't. She tried to sit up. I need to go back. You need to stay put. Your fever's still over 100. You don't understand. If my father finds out, your father doesn't know you're here. Nobody knows. I got you out before security saw anything. She stared at him. Why would you do that? You asked me not to call anyone. You were scared. I figured you had a reason. You don't know me, Yig? No. But I know what scared looks like. Vanessa was quiet for a long time. Then she lay back down, too weak to argue. What's your name? Ethan. Ethan Carter. I know who you are. Everybody knows who you are. Then you know how stupid this was. Helping me. Maybe. But my daughter had a nightmare tonight about being left alone. I couldn't leave you alone in that hallway. He stood up. I'm going to make coffee. You should try to sleep more. In the kitchen, he leaned against the counter and closed his eyes. The smart play was to call someone as soon as she was strong enough to move. Get her out of here before this got complicated. Before someone noticed the CEO was missing and started asking questions he couldn't answer. But when he went back to the living room with coffee, Vanessa was crying silently into the blanket, her shoulders shaking, and Ethan knew he wasn't going to make the smart play. He sat back down in the chair and didn't say anything. Just let her cry. Sometimes that was all you could do for someone. Just be there while they fell apart. Eventually, she fell asleep again. Ethan stayed in the chair, drinking terrible coffee and listening to the storm destroy what was left of winter outside. Sophie woke up at 7 like she always did, even on Saturday. Ethan heard her door open, heard her feet padding down the hallway. She appeared in the living room doorway in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Then she saw Vanessa on the couch and stopped. Daddy? Who's that? Ethan stood up quickly and moved to intercept her before she got too close. That's Miss Vanessa. She got sick during the storm, so she's staying here until she feels better. Sophie looked at Vanessa with the intense curiosity that 6-year-olds brought to everything. Is she going to be okay? Yeah, baby. She just needs rest. Can I have pancakes? The question was so normal, so perfectly Sophie, that Ethan almost laughed. Sure, pancakes sound good, but we have to be quiet so Miss Vanessa can sleep. They went into the kitchen. Sophie climbed onto her chair at the small table while Ethan pulled out the pancake mix. The kitchen was cramped and outdated. Cabinets that didn't close all the way. A stove with 2 broken burners. Linoleum that was supposed to look like wood, but just looked sad. But it was warm, and right now with Sophie swinging her legs and humming to herself, it felt like enough. Daddy? Yeah? Why did Miss Vanessa come here? Doesn't she have her own house? She does. But sometimes people need help from strangers. Why? Because sometimes the people who are supposed to help you can't, or won't. Sophie thought about this while Ethan mixed the batter. Are we going to help her? We're going to try. Good. I don't like when people are alone. Ethan looked at his daughter, this little person he was somehow responsible for keeping alive and safe and okay, despite having no idea what he was doing most of the time. She was staring at him with complete trust, like he had all the answers, like he knew what he was doing. He didn't know what he was doing. He'd brought a billionaire CEO home in the middle of a blizzard because she asked him not to call for help. And now she was unconscious on his couch, while he made pancakes for a 6-year-old who believed her father could fix anything. The pancakes burned a little. They always burned a little. Sophie didn't care. She drowned hers in syrup and ate them while telling Ethan about the dream she had before the nightmare. Something about a rainbow that turned into a bridge that went all the way to the moon. Halfway through breakfast, Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked terrible. Pale, unsteady, her business suit wrinkled beyond recognition. But her eyes were clearer than they'd been at 4 in the morning. Sophie's eyes went wide. Hi, Miss Vanessa. Do you want pancakes? My daddy makes the best pancakes. Vanessa looked at Sophie, then at Ethan, then at the tiny kitchen with its broken stove and peeling linoleum. Something shifted in her face, something Ethan couldn't quite read. I don't want to intrude, Vanessa said quietly. You're not intruding, Ethan said. Sit down. You need to eat something. Vanessa hesitated, then moved slowly to the table. She sat down carefully, like someone who wasn't sure the chair would hold her. Sophie immediately launched into an explanation of the proper syrup-to-pancake ratio, while Ethan poured more batter onto the griddle. This was insane. He was making pancakes for the woman who signed his paychecks, who signed everyone's paychecks in the building where he emptied trash and cleaned toilets. She was sitting at his kitchen table listening to his daughter explain second-grade social dynamics with the intensity of a UN negotiator. The pancakes finished. Ethan put a plate in front of Vanessa. She stared at it for a long moment. Thank you, she said, and her voice cracked slightly on the words. They ate breakfast in the cramped kitchen while the storm continued outside. Sophie talked enough for all three of them, bouncing between topics with 6-year-old logic that made perfect sense if you didn't think about it too hard. Vanessa listened, really listened, asked questions, laughed when Sophie told her about the boy at school who ate paste and said it tasted like chicken. Ethan watched them and felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. Vanessa Blackwood, CEO, billionaire, one of the most powerful people in the city, sitting at his cheap table eating burned pancakes and laughing at a first grader's stories like it was the most natural thing in the world. After breakfast, Sophie wanted to show Vanessa her room. Ethan started to protest. Vanessa needed rest. She was still recovering, but Vanessa stood up. I'd like to see your room, Sophie. They disappeared down the hallway. Ethan cleaned up the kitchen and tried not to think about what would happen when Vanessa was well enough to leave. When she went back to her world, and he went back to his, and pretended this never happened. He was drying the last plate when his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Carter? A man's voice. Professional, cold. This is Marcus Webb, head of security at Blackwood Global. We have some questions about last night. Ethan's stomach dropped. What questions? Security footage shows you accessing the executive floor at 2:34 a.m. You were there for 17 minutes. Then you left the building through the parking garage, alone, according to the cameras. A pause. But Miss Blackwood hasn't returned to her apartment. Her father is concerned. I don't know anything about Miss Blackwood's whereabouts. Mr. Carter, lying to me isn't advisable. If you know where she is, I cleaned the executive floor like I do every night. Then I went home. That's all I know. Another pause. Longer this time. Mr. Carter, if Miss Blackwood is in any danger, I don't know where she is, Ethan repeated. Is there anything else? We'll be in touch. The line went dead. Ethan stood in the kitchen, phone in his hand, heart pounding. They knew. They didn't have proof, but they knew. Vanessa appeared in the doorway. She must have heard his side of the conversation because her face had gone pale again. That was building security, Ethan said. They're looking for you. I need to go back. You're still sick. It doesn't matter. If they're looking for me, my father already knows something's wrong. Every minute I stay here puts you in more danger. Sophie came running down the hallway before Ethan could respond. Miss Vanessa, you have to see my stuffed animals. I have 17. Vanessa looked at Sophie, then at Ethan. Her expression was complicated, torn. 17 is a lot of stuffed animals, Vicky, Vanessa said to Sophie. But I need to talk to your dad for a minute first. Is that okay? Sophie nodded and ran back to her room. When she was gone, Vanessa turned to Ethan. I'll call my driver. Be gone in an hour. You can tell security I showed up here sick and you called someone to get me. That's plausible. That keeps you out of trouble. What happens when you go back? That's not your problem. You were terrified last night. You said if your father found out you were sick, he'd use it against you. That doesn't go away just because 12 hours passed. Ethan, you don't understand. My father owns half this city. If he thinks you're a threat, or if he thinks you're trying to leverage this situation somehow, he'll destroy you. He'll make sure you never work again. He'll make sure Sophie... She stopped. I won't let that happen. The only way to protect you is for me to go back now and control the narrative. What narrative? That I was sick. That I made a mistake leaving the building in bad weather. That you were a good Samaritan who helped me but nothing more. No connection, no story, nothing that makes you interesting to him. And you? What happens to you? Vanessa's laugh was bitter. I go back to being the CEO he built. The perfect daughter who never shows weakness. The person I've been pretending to be for 30 years. Sophie's voice echoed from her bedroom. I'm waiting. Vanessa's expression softened. She's beautiful. You're a good father. I'm a father who's terrified he's screwing everything up. You're doing better than mine ever did. Vanessa pulled out her phone. I'm calling my driver now. Thank you for last night, for this morning, for treating me like a person instead of... She trailed off. Just thank you. She made the call. 20 minutes, the driver said. Vanessa spent most of that time in Sophie's room, listening to detailed explanations of each stuffed animal's personality and backstory. Ethan stood in the hallway and listened to his daughter's laughter mixing with Vanessa's quieter responses and wondered what the hell happened now. The car arrived exactly on time. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Driver in a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. Vanessa stood at the front door, looking back at the small house with its broken porch light and peeling paint. This was the first time in 10 years I felt safe, she said quietly. That probably sounds insane. It doesn't. Sophie ran up and hugged Vanessa's legs. Bye, Miss Vanessa. You can come back for pancakes any time. Vanessa knelt down, winced slightly, still weak from the fever, and looked Sophie in the eyes. You're very kind, Sophie. Don't let anyone teach you not to be. Then she stood up, nodded to Ethan, and walked out into the cold. The sedan pulled away. Ethan watched until it disappeared around the corner. Sophie tugged his sleeve. Is Miss Vanessa sad? Yeah, baby. I think she is. Can we make her not sad? I don't know. Sometimes grown-up problems are too big to fix. Sophie considered this with the seriousness she brought to everything important. I don't think any problem is too big if people help each other. Ethan picked her up, even though she was getting too big to be picked up easily anymore. She wrapped her arms around his neck. You're smarter than your old man, he said. I know, Sophie said seriously. Mrs. Chen says I get it from you. Ethan carried her back inside and closed the door on the storm that was finally starting to die down. Monday morning, Ethan's supervisor called him into the office before his shift started. Dale Hutchinson was 55 and had worked for Blackwood Global for 30 years. He looked tired. He always looked tired, but today he looked worse than usual. Ethan, we need to talk. About what? About Friday night. About why security pulled footage of you on the executive floor. Ethan kept his face neutral. I cleaned the executive floor like always. And that's all? That's all, shit. Dale studied him for a long moment. Look, I don't know what happened. I don't want to know. But I've been here long enough to recognize when corporate starts paying attention to someone, and corporate is paying attention to you. That's bad. I didn't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter. When people at that level start asking questions about people at our level, wrong doesn't factor into it. Dale sighed. Just keep your head down. Do your job. Don't give them a reason to look closer. San. That's the plan. Good. Because you're a good worker, Ethan. You show up, you do the job, you don't cause problems. I'd hate to lose you over something stupid. The shift was normal. Same offices, same trash, same coffee stains on expensive counters. But Ethan felt eyes on him the whole night, cameras he'd never noticed before, security guards who happened to pass by his section more than usual. When he reached the executive floor, there was a new lock on the service elevator. Keycard access only. His card didn't work. He radioed Dale. Executive floor elevator's locked. Yeah. New security protocol. You'll be working floors 30 through 42 from now on. Jenkins has the executive level. Since when? Since this morning. Ethan stood in the hallway and looked at the elevator that used to take him to the 43rd floor. They were shutting him out, making sure he couldn't access Vanessa's world again. The message was clear, stay in your lane. He went back to floors 30 through 42 and cleaned offices until 6 in the morning. When his shift ended, he drove home through streets that were finally clear of snow. The storm had passed. Everything looked clean and white and temporary. Give it a few days and the snow would turn gray with exhaust and dirt, and the city would go back to being what it always was. Sophie was already awake when he got home, eating cereal at the kitchen table while Mrs. Chen read the newspaper. "How was work?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Fine." She gave him a look that said she knew he was lying but wouldn't push it in front of Sophie. He was grateful for that. After Mrs. Chen left, Sophie wanted to play outside in the snow. They built a snowman in the front yard with stones for eyes and a carrot nose that fell off twice before Ethan got it to stay. Sophie gave it a name, Gerald, and insisted on bringing it a blanket so it wouldn't get cold. Snowmen don't get cold, baby. They're made of snow. But what if he has feelings? Ethan couldn't argue with that logic. They were inside drinking hot chocolate when the doorbell rang. Ethan looked through the peephole and saw a man in an expensive suit standing on his porch. Not security, older, distinguished. The kind of man who was used to doors opening before he knocked. Ethan opened the door but left the chain on. "Can I help you?" Mr. Carter? My name is Adrien Blackwood. I believe you met my daughter." Everything went cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, Mr. Carter, I'm not here to cause problems. I just want to talk. 5 minutes of your time." Ethan looked back at the kitchen where Sophie was humming to herself. Then he looked at Adrien Blackwood, billionaire, power broker, the man Vanessa had been so afraid of, standing on his porch, asking politely for 5 minutes. "Wait here, Mighty." He closed the door, went to the kitchen, and told Sophie to go to her room for a little bit. She protested, but obeyed when she saw his face. Ethan opened the door again and stepped outside, closing it behind him. "We talk out here. You don't come in." "That's fair." Adrien looked at the broken porch light, the peeling paint, the snowman in the yard with its cockeyed carrot nose. "You have a daughter. That's not your business." "No, it's not." Adrien met his eyes. "I'm here because security footage shows you were the last person to see Vanessa before she disappeared for 15 hours during the worst storm of the year. Then she shows up at her apartment with a story about getting lost, finding shelter at a gas station, and calling her driver when the road's cleared. It's a lie, a fairly obvious one. If you think it's a lie, why are you here instead of calling the police?" "Because Vanessa is a terrible liar. Always has been. When she's hiding something, she gets defensive and over-explains. She did both when I asked her what happened Friday night." Adrien smiled slightly. "And because her driver said she smelled like pancakes." Ethan didn't say anything. "I'm not here to threaten you, Mr. Carter. I'm here because for the first time in 5 years, my daughter looked genuinely happy when she thought I wasn't watching. That interests me. Your daughter was sick. I helped her. That's all." "That's what she said. But people don't risk their jobs, and yes, I know you were removed from the executive floor shift, for that's all. So either you're trying to leverage this situation for money, which I doubt because you would have called me by now, or something else happened." Adrien's expression shifted. "My daughter has spent the last decade building walls. I helped her build most of them. They've made her powerful, but they've also made her miserable. If you found a way through those walls in one night, I want to understand how." "Yeah, I made her pancakes and didn't ask for anything in return. That's not complicated." "It's more complicated than you think in her world." Adrien pulled out a business card and held it out. "If Vanessa contacts you, and I suspect she will, call me, please." "Why would she contact me?" "Look, because you're the first person in years who treated her like she was someone worth caring about instead of someone worth using. People don't forget that." He set the card on the porch railing when Ethan didn't take it. 5 minutes. That's all I wanted. Thank you for your time, Mr. Carter." Adrien walked back to the car at the curb, another black sedan with another driver in an expensive suit. Ethan watched him leave, then looked at the business card on the railing. He picked it up, looked at it, put it in his pocket. Inside, Sophie was waiting with questions about who that man was and why he looked so serious, and could they build another snowman? Maybe a friend for Gerald? "Maybe tomorrow, baby. Promise?" "Promise." That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan stood in his kitchen and looked at his phone. No calls, no messages, nothing from Vanessa. He told himself that was good. That meant she was back in her world, safe behind whatever walls her father was talking about. That meant Ethan could go back to his world and pretend Friday night never happened. But he kept thinking about the way she'd looked at his kitchen like it was something precious. The way she'd listened to Sophie's stories like they mattered. The way she'd said this was the first time in 10 years I felt safe. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Thank you for breakfast and for not calling my father. V. Ethan stared at the message. He should delete it, pretend he never got it, stay in his lane like Dale said. Instead, he typed back, "How are you feeling?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Better. Physically. Everything else is complicated. Complicated how? My father knows something happened. He's testing everyone around me to figure out what. It's exhausting. Is he testing you? He's always testing me. That's what fathers do in my family. Ethan thought about Sophie, about the way she trusted him completely, even when he had no idea what he was doing, about how she'd asked if they could help Vanessa stop being sad, because no problem was too big if people helped each other. That's not what fathers are supposed to do. The dots appeared and stayed for a long time before her response came through. I know. That's why Friday night felt like it did. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He stood in his kitchen, phone in hand, wondering how you comforted someone whose whole life was built on being strong enough that comfort wasn't necessary. Finally, he typed, "If you need pancakes again, you know where to find them." I shouldn't. Coming back there puts you and Sophie at risk. That's not your call to make. Another long pause. Then, thank you, Ethan, for everything. The conversation ended. Ethan put his phone down and looked around his small kitchen with its broken stove and peeling linoleum. The same kitchen where Vanessa Blackwood had sat eating burned pancakes and laughing at a 6-year-old's stories. He didn't know what happened next. Didn't know if he'd ever see her again, or if this was just a strange moment that would fade into memory while he went back to cleaning toilets and she went back to running an empire. But he knew Sophie was right. No problem was too big if people helped each other. And he knew that for one morning, in his cramped kitchen during the worst storm of the year, Vanessa Blackwood had been safe. That had to count for something. Outside, the snow was melting. Spring would come eventually. It always did. Ethan turned off the lights and went to bed, wondering if he'd just made everything in his life better or worse. He had a feeling he'd find out soon enough. The first sign that things were changing came on Wednesday, 3 days after Adrien Blackwood showed up on Ethan's porch. Ethan's landlord called at noon while he was sleeping off the night shift. "Mr. Carter, we need to discuss your lease." Ethan sat up, instantly awake. "What about it?" "The building's been sold. New ownership is raising rent across the board. Your unit will be going up $400 a month starting next month." $400? That's almost 50%, but I understand it's inconvenient, but the new owners are within their rights. Market rate adjustments. If you can't meet the new terms, you'll need to vacate by the end of next month. The line went dead before Ethan could respond. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in his hand, doing math in his head that didn't work no matter how he arranged the numbers. 400 more a month meant he couldn't afford groceries, couldn't afford Sophie's after-school program, couldn't afford to keep living in the house that was barely affordable before. Mrs. Chen knocked on his door an hour later. She looked worried. "Did your landlord call?" "Yeah, you too?" "Oh." Same conversation, 400 more starting next month. She sat down at his kitchen table without being invited. They'd known each other long enough that invitations didn't matter. "Ethan, I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years. Buildings don't just sell overnight, and rent doesn't jump that much unless someone wants people out." "What are you saying?" "Mercier, I'm saying I've seen this before. Someone with money decides they want to redevelop an area, so they buy up properties and price out the residents. Make it look legal. Make it look like business." She looked at him carefully. "You think this has anything to do with Friday night?" "I don't know." But he did know. He knew the same way he knew when Sophie was lying about brushing her teeth, or when Mrs. Chen was pretending her arthritis wasn't bothering her. The timing was too perfect. Adrien Blackwood shows up asking questions, and 3 days later, Ethan's rent jumps by an amount designed to be just barely impossible. His phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. "Can we talk?" "Not a great time, please. It's important." He looked at Mrs. Chen. She raised her eyebrows. "The Blackwood woman?" How did you know? Because you get a specific look on your face when you're thinking about her. Same look my husband used to get when he was trying to solve a problem he didn't understand. She stood up. Talk to her. Maybe she knows what's happening. After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. Ethan, I need to see you. Bad time for that. My landlord just raised my rent by $400 a month. Silence. Then, when did this happen? About an hour ago. You know anything about it? No, but I can guess. She sounded angry. Actually angry. Not the careful, controlled tone she'd used when they texted. My father's testing you. Seeing if you'll come to me for help. Seeing if you'll ask for money. Why would he do that? Because that's how his world works. Everyone wants something. Everyone has a price. If you come to me asking for help with rent, it proves you're just another person trying to leverage proximity to our family for personal gain. And if I don't, then you're either stupid or genuinely different. He's trying to figure out which. Ethan walked to the window. Outside, Sophie was in the front yard with Mrs. Chen, throwing snowballs at Gerald the snowman. Her laughter carried through the glass. I'm not asking you for money, Vanessa. I know. That's the problem. How is that a problem? Because my father doesn't understand people who don't want something. It makes them unpredictable, dangerous. She paused. I want to help. You can't. If you help, it proves his theory, that I'm connected to you, that this is something more than what it was. And what was it? Ethan watched Sophie try to rebuild Gerald's arm that had fallen off. It was breakfast. It was helping someone who needed it, that's all. That's not all. You know it's not all. He did know. Knew it from the way he kept thinking about her sitting at his kitchen table. Knew it from the way he checked his phone more often than he should, hoping for messages that came less often than he wanted. Knew it from the way Sophie kept asking when Miss Vanessa was coming back for pancakes. It has to be all, he said quietly. I've got a 6-year-old daughter who depends on me. I can't let your father's games put her at risk. So what are you going to do? Find a way. That's what people like me do. We find a way. Ethan, I have to go. Sophie needs lunch. He hung up before she could respond. It was rude. He knew it was rude. But staying on the phone meant having a conversation he couldn't afford to have about feelings he couldn't afford to feel for a woman who lived in a different world. That afternoon, Ethan called around to other buildings in the area. Every landlord told him the same thing. No vacancies or vacancies at prices he couldn't afford. One landlord laughed when he said his price range. Good luck finding anything in that neighborhood for less than $1,800 a month. His current rent was $900. The increase would make it $1,300. $1,800 was impossible. By Thursday, the situation got worse. Sophie's school called. The principal wanted a meeting. Ethan showed up Friday afternoon, still tired from the night shift. Principal Morrison was a thin woman with glasses that made her look stern even when she was trying to be friendly. She wasn't trying to be friendly today. Mr. Carter, we need to discuss Sophie's enrollment. What about it? There's been a complaint, anonymous, regarding your fitness as a guardian. Everything stopped. Excuse me? The complaint alleges that you're exposing Sophie to inappropriate situations, that you brought a stranger into your home, that your judgment may be impaired. Who made this complaint? It's anonymous, as I said, but we're required to take all complaints seriously. Child Services will need to do a home visit. Until that's resolved, we're recommending Sophie be placed in temporary alternative care. Alternative care? You mean foster care? Well, temporary, just until… No. Ethan stood up. You're not taking my daughter away based on an anonymous complaint from someone who doesn't even have the guts to sign their name. Mr. Carter, sit down. I'm a good father. Ask Sophie, ask her teachers, ask anyone who actually knows us. I have asked. Sophie's teachers say she's well-adjusted, happy, clean, fed, and loved. That's not the issue. The issue is the complaint itself, which we're legally obligated to investigate. This is bullshit. Someone's targeting me. Morrison's expression softened slightly. I know this is difficult, but if there's nothing to hide, the investigation will clear you quickly. A few weeks at most. A few weeks where my daughter thinks I abandoned her? Where she's scared and confused and doesn't understand why she can't come home? Ethan's voice cracked. You have kids. Principal Morrison? I do. Then you know what this would do to her. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. The home visit is Monday. Make sure everything is in order. If the investigator finds nothing concerning, Sophie stays with you and this goes away. But if there are issues, there won't be. He left before she could say anything else. His hands were shaking when he got to the car. He sat in the parking lot and tried to breathe normally. Someone was coming after Sophie, using her to get to him. His phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Having trouble, Mr. Carter? These things have a way of working themselves out if you make the right choices. A B, Adrien Blackwood. Ethan stared at the message. The implication was clear. Come to us asking for help. Prove you're like everyone else who wants something from the Blackwood family. Do that, and the problems go away. He deleted the message and drove home. Mrs. Chen was watching Sophie in the backyard. When she saw Ethan's face, she sent Sophie inside for a snack and turned to him with concern. What happened? He told her about the school, about the complaint, about the home visit on Monday. Mrs. Chen's expression went hard. They're using your daughter to pressure you. I know. You need to call that woman. Tell her what's happening. Woods. I can't. That's what they want. They want me to connect myself to her publicly, to prove I'm trying to use her. So what? Let them think that. Your daughter is more important than pride. It's not about pride. If I go to Vanessa now, I prove her father right. I become exactly what he thinks I am. And then he wins. He'll always have that over us. Who cares if he wins? Sophie needs to be safe. Sophie is safe. With me. In our home. I'm not letting them take her away because some billionaire wants to prove a point. Mrs. Chen studied him. You're a stubborn man, Ethan Carter. I learned from the best. His mother had been stubborn too. Stubborn enough to raise him alone after his father left. Stubborn enough to work 2 jobs and still make it to every school event. Stubborn enough to teach him that dignity mattered even when you had nothing else. That night at work, Dale pulled him aside again. You need to talk to me, Ethan. About what? About whatever's going on that's got corporate crawling up my ass asking questions about you. About why I just got a call from HR wanting your employment file. About why you look like you haven't slept in a week. I'm fine. You're not fine. And I can't help you if you won't tell me what's happening. Motetsu. Ethan looked at Dale. This man who'd given him a chance 3 years ago when nobody else would hire a single father with a shaky work history and a 2-year-old. Dale had bent rules for him. Let him take emergency time off when Sophie was sick. Covered for him when he was late because daycare pickup ran long. I helped someone, Ethan said quietly. Someone important. And now people are testing me to see if I did it because I wanted something in return. Dale was quiet for a moment. The Blackwood woman. How'd you know? Because nothing else would get this level of attention. And because I've worked here long enough to know how these people operate. Dale sighed. What do they want from you? They want me to prove I'm like everyone else, that I'm using her, that I want money or access or whatever. Are you? No. Then you're an idiot. Because people like us don't win against people like them, Ethan. We survive by staying invisible, by not making waves, by taking the scraps they give us and being grateful. Dale put a hand on his shoulder. But you're not going to do that, are you? I can't. They're threatening my daughter now. Then you need to be smart. Document everything. Keep records. Make sure you've got proof of what they're doing. Dale looked around to make sure they were alone. And Ethan? Whatever happens, you didn't hear this from me, but HR is planning to pull your security clearance next week. They're building a case to terminate you. Probably some made-up reason about protocol violations or time theft or something they can't disprove. How do you know? Because I've seen them do it before to people who became problems. They make it legal, they make it clean, and they make it impossible to fight. Ethan worked his shift feeling like the walls were closing in. Rent he couldn't pay. A job he was about to lose. Child services coming to evaluate his home. All of it timed perfectly to create maximum pressure. At 4 a.m, his phone rang. Vanessa. I know what my father's doing, she said without preamble. The rent, the school, all of it. Good for you. Ethan, please, I'm trying to help. By doing what? Coming to my rescue? Proving to your father that I'm connected to you? That's what he wants. That's the whole point. So what's your plan? Let him destroy your life out of stubbornness? My plan is to not give him the satisfaction of being right. My plan is to handle my own problems. By losing your home? By losing custody of Sophie? I'm not going to lose Sophie. You might. Do you have $10,000 for a lawyer? 20? Because that's what fighting child services costs. And my father has unlimited resources to drag it out. Her voice cracked slightly. I know you're trying to protect your daughter, but you can't protect her by yourself. Not against this. Watch me. Ethan, I have to go. My shift's not done. He hung up and immediately felt like an asshole. Vanessa was trying to help. She was scared for him, for Sophie. And he kept pushing her away because accepting help meant admitting he couldn't handle this alone. But handling things alone was all he knew. It's what kept him and Sophie alive after Sarah left. It's what got them through the eviction 2 years ago, the car breaking down last summer. The week Sophie had pneumonia, and he worked double shifts to pay the hospital bill. Accepting help meant owing people, meant being vulnerable, meant giving someone else power over your life. He finished his shift and drove home as the sun came up. Sophie was still asleep. Ethan stood in her doorway and watched her breathe, watched her little chest rise and fall, watched the way she clutched her stuffed rabbit, even in sleep. Nobody was taking her away. He didn't care what he had to do. The home visit was scheduled for Monday at 10 in the morning. Ethan spent the weekend cleaning the house until it was cleaner than it had ever been. He fixed the broken porch light. He patched the holes in the drywall. He scrubbed the bathroom until the tile looked almost new. He organized Sophie's room, washed all the dishes twice, and made sure the refrigerator was fully stocked with healthy food. Mrs. Chen came over Sunday afternoon and looked around with approval. Place looks good, but it needs to be perfect. It won't matter if they've already decided the outcome. It has to matter. It's all I've got. Monday morning, Sophie went to school not knowing that someone would be coming to decide if she could stay in her home. Ethan told her he was taking a day off work to fix some things around the house. She believed him because Sophie always believed him. The investigator arrived at exactly 10 o'clock. Her name was Jennifer Park, and she looked tired in the way that people who deal with broken families every day always look tired. Mr. Carter? So that's me. I'm here to conduct a home evaluation regarding the complaint filed against you. This should take about an hour. May I come in? Yes. She walked through every room taking notes, asked questions about Sophie's routine, her diet, her school performance, her emotional state. She looked in the refrigerator, checked the smoke detectors, examined Sophie's bedroom thoroughly. Tell me about the incident that prompted this complaint, Park finally said. What incident? The complaint alleges you brought an unknown woman into your home and exposed your daughter to her set. A woman I work with got sick during the storm 2 weeks ago. I helped her. She met Sophie briefly, then left, that's all. Was this woman a romantic partner? No. A friend? An acquaintance. Someone who needed help. Park made notes. The complaint suggests this woman may have been a danger to your daughter. The woman was running a fever and needed somewhere to stay until the storm passed. She was kind to Sophie. There was no danger. And this woman's name? Ethan hesitated. I don't think that's relevant. Mr. Carter, if you refuse to answer questions, it makes it harder for me to clear this complaint. Vanessa. Her name is Vanessa. Last name? Another hesitation. Then, Blackwood. Park's pen stopped moving. She looked up at him with an expression he couldn't read. Vanessa Blackwood, the CEO. Yes. You brought Vanessa Blackwood to your home. She was sick. I helped her. Her last name doesn't change that. Park was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed her notebook. Mr. Carter, I've been doing this job for 12 years. I've seen every kind of living situation you can imagine. Homes that shouldn't have children in them. Parents who shouldn't have custody. But I've also seen good parents get destroyed by people with resources and agendas. She looked around the small house. This is a good home. Your daughter is clearly loved and well cared for. The complaint against you is baseless. So we're done? Not exactly. I'll file my report clearing you. But the person who made this complaint has resources. They can appeal. They can file new complaints. They can make your life very difficult for a very long time. She met his eyes. Whatever you're caught in the middle of, Mr. Carter, be careful. Because the system is supposed to protect children, but sometimes it gets used as a weapon by people who have nothing to do with the child's welfare. After she left, Ethan sat on the couch and let himself breathe for the first time in an hour. Sophie was safe. For now. His phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. How did it go? Fine, we're cleared. Thank God. I was worried all morning. How did you know about the visit? My father mentioned it. He seemed disappointed by something today. I assumed it meant things went your way. Ethan stared at that message. Adrien Blackwood was disappointed that the home visit cleared him, which meant Adrien had been expecting it to go differently. Had maybe been planning for it to go differently. Vanessa, I need to know something. How far is your father willing to take this? The response took a long time to come. I don't know. Farther than I want to believe, probably. He sees you as a problem to be solved. Why? Because I gave you pancakes? Because you're the first person in years who treated me like I was worth caring about. Because I smiled when I talked about you. Because I asked about you when I thought he wasn't listening. A pause. Because he knows I want to see you again, and he's trying to prove that you're not who I think you are. And who do you think I am? Someone good. Someone real. Someone who makes me remember what it felt like before everything became about power and control and winning. Ethan sat with that message for a long time. Then he called her. She answered immediately. I can't keep doing this, he said. Doing what? Pretending that helping you was just helping someone who needed it. Pretending that I don't think about you. Pretending that Sophie doesn't ask about you every day. Ethan. But I also can't let your father use Sophie to get to me. I can't let him threaten my daughter because I won't play his games. So we need to stop. You need to go back to your world, and I need to stay in mine, and we need to pretend that storm never happened. I don't want that. I don't either. But what we want doesn't matter when there's a 6-year-old involved who doesn't understand why the adults in her life keep making everything complicated. Vanessa was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more like the CEO voice he'd heard in elevator videos. What if I fight back? What? What if instead of letting my father control this, I take control myself? What if I make it public that I'm seeing you, that you're important to me? What if I dare him to come after you directly instead of sneaking around with rent increases and anonymous complaints? That's crazy. But it's been, yeah, Mom. Maybe. But I'm tired of being tested. I'm tired of having to prove myself to a man who will never be satisfied. And I'm tired of watching him hurt people I care about. A pause. I care about you? Ethan, I care about Sophie, and I'm not going to stand by while he tries to destroy you just to make a point. Vanessa, think about what you're saying. If you go public with this, the media will tear me apart. They'll find every mistake I ever made, every late rent payment, every bad decision, everything. And they'll use it to prove I'm using you. Let them try. I'll tell them the truth. The truth doesn't matter to people like that. The story matters. And the story they'll tell is that a gold-digging janitor seduced a naive CEO during a vulnerable moment. Then we make sure our story is louder than theirs. There is no our story, Vanessa. There's nothing here to make a story about. We had breakfast, that's all. Stop lying to yourself. And stop lying to me. You feel this too. I know you do. He did. He felt it in the way his chest tightened when her name showed up on his phone. Felt it in the way he kept replaying their kitchen conversation in his head. Felt it in the way he couldn't stop wondering what would happen if circumstances were different. If he wasn't a broke single father and she wasn't a billionaire CEO and the world didn't treat people like them as though they existed in separate realities. What I feel doesn't matter, he said quietly. What matters is keeping Sophie safe. And the safest thing for her is if you and I don't talk anymore. Ethan, I'm sorry, Vanessa, I really am, but this is where it has to end. He hung up before she could respond. Then he turned off his phone because he knew she'd call back, and he knew he didn't have the strength to not answer. That night, Sophie asked why he looked sad. Just tired, baby. Is Miss Vanessa coming back? Well, I don't think so. Why not? Did we do something wrong? No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-up things are just complicated. I don't like when things are complicated. Things should be simple. Yeah, they should. He read her 3 stories before bed instead of the usual one. When she finally fell asleep, he went back to the living room and turned his phone on. 17 missed calls from Vanessa. 8 text messages that he didn't read. 1 voicemail that he listened to against his better judgment. Ethan, I know you think you're protecting Sophie by pushing me away, and maybe you're right. Maybe the smart thing is to walk away from this before someone gets hurt worse than they already are. But I want you to know something. That morning in your kitchen was the first time in 10 years I felt like myself. The first time I wasn't performing or calculating or trying to be someone I'm not. I was just me. And you let me be that. You and Sophie both. I can't walk away from that. I won't. So even if you don't call me back, even if you delete my number and pretend this never happened, I'm going to find a way to make this right. I'm going to find a way to stop my father from hurting you. Because that's what people do when they care about each other. They fight. Even when it's hard. Even when it's scary. They fight. The voicemail ended. Ethan sat in the dark living room and wondered how everything got so complicated so fast. His phone buzzed. Another text. But not from Vanessa. From Dale. HR meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. They're letting you go. I'm sorry, Ethan. I tried to push back, but it came from too high up. You've got 24 hours to figure out your next move. Ethan looked at the message for a long time. Then he put the phone down and laughed. Actually laughed, because what else was there to do? He was losing his job, couldn't pay his rent, had child services watching him. And the woman he was trying not to fall for was a billionaire whose father had unlimited resources to make his life hell. His mother used to say that when things got so bad you couldn't see a way forward, you had 2 choices, lie down and quit, or stand up and fight even if you knew you'd lose. She never lied down. Not once. Not even at the end when the cancer made it hard to breathe and harder to hope. Ethan wouldn't lie down either. He picked up his phone and called Vanessa back. She answered on the first ring. Ethan, I just got fired, or I'm about to be. HR meeting tomorrow. What? Your father's finishing what he started, taking away everything until I have nothing left to lose. So I guess he wins. No, he doesn't win. I won't let him. Vanessa, you can't stop him. You know that. Then we go public. We tell our story. We make it impossible for him to come after you without looking like exactly what he is. And what is he? A bully. A man who would rather destroy someone than admit his daughter might actually be happy. Ethan thought about Sophie sleeping in the next room, about the life he'd built for her that was falling apart piece by piece, about the choice his mother would have made. If we do this, he said slowly, we do it the right way. No lies, no spin, just the truth. What's the truth? What? The truth is, I helped someone during a storm. The truth is, we had breakfast and your daughter made you laugh. The truth is, your father didn't like that, so he's been making my life hell ever since. And the truth is, I'm tired of being pushed around by people who think money makes them untouchable. That's exactly the truth we tell. Your father's going to come at us hard. You know that, right? He's going to dig into my past. He's going to find every mistake I ever made and use it against us. Let him. I don't care what he finds. I care that you're a good father, that you're kind, that you helped me when you had every reason not to. That's who you are. That's what matters. Ethan closed his eyes. This is a terrible idea. Probably. We're going to regret it. Maybe. Sophie's going to be in the middle of it. We'll protect her. Together. Together. The word hung in the air like a promise neither of them could guarantee they'd keep. Okay, Ethan said finally. Let's do this. Let's tell them the truth and see what happens. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for making this worth fighting for. After he hung up, Ethan sat in the dark for a long time. Tomorrow morning, he'd go to that HR meeting and tell them exactly what he thought of their trumped-up termination. Tomorrow afternoon, he and Vanessa would figure out how to tell their story in a way that couldn't be twisted or weaponized. Tomorrow night, he'd explain to Sophie that things were about to get messy, but they'd get through it together. But tonight, in this moment, Ethan let himself believe that maybe his mother was right. Maybe standing up and fighting, even when you knew you'd probably lose, was its own kind of victory. Outside, the last of the snow was melting. Soon it would be spring. Time for new things to grow. Ethan just hoped he and Sophie would still be here to see it. The HR meeting happened in a conference room on the 15th floor that smelled like coffee and corporate desperation. 3 people sat across from Ethan: Karen Westfield from Human Resources, a lawyer whose name he didn't catch, and some VP he'd never seen before who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen slid a folder across the table. "Mr. Carter, we're terminating your employment effective immediately. The documentation outlines multiple protocol violations, including unauthorized access to restricted areas, misuse of company resources, and conduct unbecoming of a Blackwood Global employee." Ethan opened the folder. The violations were bullshit dressed up in corporate language. Unauthorized access to the executive floor, where he'd been assigned to clean for 3 years. Misuse of resources, using a company elevator during his shift. Conduct unbecoming, helping someone who needed it. "This is retaliation," Ethan said calmly. "We all know it. Mr. Carter, I understand you're upset, but I'm not upset. I'm just calling it what it is. Someone told you to fire me and you're doing it. That's fine. But don't insult me by pretending there are real violations here." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter, if you sign the termination agreement, you'll receive 2 weeks severance and a neutral reference. If you choose to contest this, the company will vigorously defend its position and you'll receive nothing." Vigorously defend, that's good. Very professional. Ethan closed the folder. "I'm not signing this." Karen looked uncomfortable. "Ethan, please be reasonable. 2 weeks severance is generous given the circumstances." "Given what circumstances? That I helped Vanessa Blackwood when she was sick? That I didn't call security when she asked me not to? That I made her breakfast and treated her like a human being?" He leaned forward. "Or is this about the fact that someone upstairs doesn't like that a janitor and a CEO had a conversation in a kitchen?" The VP finally spoke. "Mr. Carter, I think you're misunderstanding." "No, I understand perfectly. This is about control, about making sure people stay in their lanes, about proving that someone like me shouldn't get ideas above his station." Ethan stood up. "You can fire me. That's your right. But I'm not signing anything that says I did something wrong, because I didn't. And when people ask why you fired me, I'm going to tell them the truth." "That sounds like a threat," the lawyer said. "It's not a threat. It's a promise. You want to destroy my life? Go ahead. But I'm not going to make it easy for you." He walked out before they could respond. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. But he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks, like he'd taken back at least a small piece of control. Dale was waiting in the hallway. "How bad?" "They fired me. Offered severance if I sign an NDA. I told them to shove it." "Jesus, Ethan. I know it was stupid, but I couldn't sit there and let them lie about what this was." Dale looked around to make sure they were alone. "There's something you should know. This morning, Adrien Blackwood himself called down to security, told them to escort you from the building if you caused any trouble. He's watching this personally." "Good. Let him watch." "You're going to fight this?" "I don't have a choice. If I back down now, he wins. And if he wins, Sophie loses. So yeah, I'm going to fight." Dale pulled out an envelope. "This is my cell number and my wife's. If you need anything, reference, someone to vouch for you, whatever, you call. And Ethan, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Most people would have folded by now." Most people are smarter than me. Maybe. Or maybe most people just forgot how to stand up when it matters. Security escorted Ethan from the building like he was dangerous. 2 guards walked him to his car while morning shift workers watched. Some looked away. A few nodded like they understood. One woman, Teresa from accounting, who he talked to maybe twice, mouthed "good luck" as he passed. In his car, Ethan called Vanessa. She answered immediately. "I just heard. Ethan, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. This was always going to happen." He started the engine. "Where are we doing this?" "Doing what?" "Going public, telling our story. You said you wanted to fight back. Let's fight back." "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. Your father wants to make me disappear quietly. We make noise instead. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. My publicist can set up a press conference this afternoon if you're ready. I'm ready. But Vanessa, we do this my way. No spin, no corporate messaging, just the truth. What's the truth? Bol ball. The truth is a CEO got sick and a janitor helped her. The truth is we had breakfast and your father didn't like it. The truth is he spent the last 2 weeks trying to destroy my life because I refused to ask you for money or play his games. That's the story we tell. That story makes my father look like a villain. Your father is a villain, at least in this story. If that's a problem for you, it's not a problem. He is what he is. I'm just worried what happens when he retaliates. Let him retaliate. I've got nothing left to lose. You have Sophie. Ethan gripped the steering wheel. That's why we're doing this. If we go public, he can't come after her quietly. Everything he does will be visible. That's the best protection we've got. Okay, my publicist will call you with details. Ethan, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for making this worth the fight. What? After he hung up, Ethan drove to Sophie's school. It was 10:30. She'd be in math class. He signed her out early, telling the office she had a doctor's appointment. Sophie appeared in the hallway a few minutes later looking confused. Daddy, are we really going to the doctor? No, baby. We need to talk. Come on. He took her to the park near their house. They sat on a bench while other kids played on the swings. Sophie looked at him with worry that no 6-year-old should have to feel. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. But some things are happening that I need to explain to you. What things? You remember Miss Vanessa, the woman who came to our house during the storm? Uh-huh. Is she okay? She's okay. But some people are upset that I helped her. They think I shouldn't have brought her to our house. They think I did something wrong. Sophie's face scrunched up in confusion. But you didn't do anything wrong. You were nice to her. Being nice is good. I know, baby. I know being nice is good. But sometimes grown-ups make things complicated. And because I helped Miss Vanessa, I lost my job. They fired you. Yeah. That's not fair. No, it's not. But that's what happened. And now Miss Vanessa and I are going to tell people what really happened. We're going to explain that I just helped someone who was sick. But when we do that, there might be people with cameras, but there might be people asking questions. There might be kids at school who say things because they heard their parents talking. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then, are you and Miss Vanessa boyfriend and girlfriend? The question caught him off guard. Why would you ask that? Because on TV, when a boy and a girl have to tell everyone something together, they're usually boyfriend and girlfriend. It's not like that, Sophie. Miss Vanessa and I are friends. We care about each other, but we're from very different worlds. What does that mean? It means she's very rich and important, and we're not. And sometimes that matters to people. Does it matter to you? No. Does it matter to Miss Vanessa? I don't think so. Then it doesn't matter. Sophie said it with the absolute certainty that only children could manage. If you like each other and you're nice to each other, that's all that's important. Ethan pulled her close. When did you get so smart? I was born smart. You just didn't notice until now. Fair point. They sat on the bench for a while longer. Sophie eventually ran off to play on the swings. Ethan watched her and tried to memorize this moment before everything got complicated, before cameras and questions and judgment. Right now, in this moment, she was just a kid on a swing, laughing because swings were fun, and 6-year-olds didn't need more reason than that. His phone buzzed. Text from a number he didn't recognize. Press conference at 3 p.m. Blackwood Global Tower, main lobby. I'm Vanessa's publicist. She said you wanted to do this your way. I'm here to make sure you get that chance. Rebecca Mills. Ethan typed back. I'll be there. Rebecca. Bring Sophie if you want. Might be good to show you're a real person with a real family, but also might be too much pressure for a kid. Your call. He looked at Sophie on the swings. Bringing her would make the story more sympathetic, would show Adrien Blackwood that there were real consequences to his games, but it would also put her in front of cameras and reporters and people who might not be kind. His phone rang. Vanessa. Did Rebecca text you? Yeah, she suggested bringing Sophie. What do you think? I think it makes good strategy. I also think it's asking a 6-year-old to be part of something she doesn't understand. Then don't bring her. I meant what I said. We do this your way. If that means protecting Sophie from the circus, we protect her. Where will she be? I'll have someone pick her up from your house. Take her somewhere fun. Keep her away from the news until this is over. Someone you trust? My driver, Marcus. He's been with our family for 20 years. He's got 3 grandkids. Sophie will be safe with him. Ethan looked at his daughter, still swinging, still laughing. Okay, tell Marcus to meet us at my house at 2. Ethan, this is going to get ugly. My father's already putting out statements saying you're a disgruntled employee trying to leverage a brief encounter for attention. He's going to say you're lying, that you're trying to extort us, that you're using me. Let him say it. The truth doesn't need his permission to exist. I hope you're right. So do I. They picked up lunch at Sophie's favorite taco place. She talked the whole time about a boy at school who said girls couldn't play soccer and how she proved him wrong at recess. Ethan listened and tried to focus on her words instead of the press conference that was 3 hours away. At home, Mrs. Chen was waiting on the porch. I heard Dale called me. You talked to Dale? I gave him my number weeks ago. Told him to call if you needed backup. She looked at Sophie. Hi, sweetheart. How about you help me make cookies while your dad takes care of some boring grown-up stuff? Sophie's eyes lit up. What kind of cookies? Whatever kind you want. Chocolate chip with extra chips. Extra chips it is. After Mrs. Chen took Sophie inside, Ethan turned to find Marcus standing by a black sedan. He was older than Ethan expected, with gray hair and kind eyes. Mr. Carter, Miss Blackwood asked me to look after your daughter this afternoon. She's 6. She likes dinosaurs and cookies. She'll talk your ear off if you let her. Marcus smiled. My granddaughter's 7. I'm used to it. If anything happens to her, nothing will happen to her. You have my word. Again, Ethan wanted to believe him. He needed to believe him. Because in 2 hours he was going to stand in front of cameras and tell the world that a billionaire's daughter mattered to him. And that would make Sophie a target whether he brought her to the press conference or not. Sophie came back outside with cookie dough on her face. Daddy, Mrs. Chen says you have to go to a meeting. That's right. How long will you be gone? A few hours, but Mr. Marcus is going to take you somewhere fun. Maybe the aquarium, maybe the science museum, whatever you want. Can we see the dinosaurs? Marcus nodded. Dinosaurs sound perfect. Sophie hugged Ethan tight. Are you going to be okay? I'm going to be fine, baby. I promise. Pinky promise? He linked his pinky with hers. Pinky promise. After they left, Mrs. Chen came back outside. You're doing the right thing. You sure about that? He shouted. No, but I'm sure that doing nothing would be worse. She handed him a paper bag. Cookies for the road. And Ethan, don't let them make you smaller than you are. You're a good man, a good father. Don't apologize for that. The drive to Blackwood Global Tower took 30 minutes. Ethan parked in a public lot 3 blocks away because he sure as hell wasn't parking in the employee garage anymore. The building looked different in daylight, bigger, more imposing, the kind of building that made regular people feel small just by existing. Rebecca Mills met him in the lobby. She was younger than he expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen every kind of crisis and survived them all. You're Ethan. That's me? Good. We've got 20 minutes before this starts. Here's what you need to know. There will be about 30 reporters. Most of them are friendly to Vanessa. A few are loyal to Adrien Blackwood. Those are the ones who'll try to trip you up. Trip me up how? Questions about your employment record, your finances, your custody situation. Anything that makes you look unstable or opportunistic. Just stick to the facts. Answer what you're comfortable answering. Deflect the rest. I'm not good at deflecting. Then be honest. Honesty plays well if you can sell it. She looked him over. You clean up okay. That's good. People trust janitors more than they trust CEOs. Use that. I'm not trying to use anything. I'm just trying to tell the truth. The truth is great, but the truth with good optics is better. She checked her watch. Vanessa's already upstairs. She'll come down at 3 exactly. You'll stand together. She'll give a brief statement, then you'll give yours. Then we take a few questions and get you both out before things turn ugly. What if I don't want to leave before things turn ugly? Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Then you're braver or dumber than most people I work with. Probably both. At 3 o'clock, the lobby filled with reporters, cameras, lights, people talking into microphones. Ethan stood to the side and watched them set up, feeling completely out of place. This was Vanessa's world, not his. Then Vanessa walked out of the elevator and everything shifted. She was wearing a simple gray suit, no jewelry, no obvious makeup. She looked professional, but not distant. Powerful, but not untouchable. When she saw Ethan, something in her expression softened. She walked over to him while cameras captured every step. You came. I said I would. Are you ready? No, but let's do it anyway. They moved to the podium together. Vanessa stepped up to the microphone while Ethan stood slightly behind her, close enough to be part of this, but far enough that he wasn't crowding her space. Thank you all for coming, Vanessa began. 2 weeks ago, I got sick. Very sick. I was alone in this building during the worst storm of the year, and I was terrified. Terrified of being found by people who would see my illness as weakness. Terrified of what it would mean for my position, my authority, my ability to lead this company. In that moment, Ethan Carter, one of our night shift janitors, found me. Instead of calling security, instead of making the safe choice that would have protected his job and his future, he helped me. He took me to his home. He and his daughter cared for me when I had no right to expect care from anyone. They treated me like a person instead of a CEO, like someone who mattered beyond what I could do for them. She paused. Some reporters were taking notes. Others just stared. In the 2 weeks since that night, my father has systematically tried to destroy Ethan's life. His rent was raised by an amount designed to force him from his home. An anonymous complaint was filed with Child Services questioning his fitness as a parent. And this morning, he was fired from Blackwood Global with fabricated violations that wouldn't hold up to any honest scrutiny. Why? Because my father wanted to prove that Ethan helped me for the wrong reasons. That he was trying to leverage proximity to our family for personal gain, that he was like everyone else who sees the Blackwood name and sees opportunity. Vanessa turned slightly to look at Ethan. But Ethan never asked me for anything. Not money, not access, not help with his problems. He just helped someone who needed it, and he's being punished for it. That ends today. I'm not going to stand by while a good man loses everything because my father can't accept that I found something real with someone who wasn't pre-approved by corporate interests. The room erupted, questions flying from every direction, cameras flashing. Vanessa stepped back from the microphone and gestured for Ethan to step forward. His mouth was dry. His hands were shaking. But he stepped up to the microphone and looked at the crowd of reporters who were waiting to dissect every word he said. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 32 years old. I'm a single father to a 6-year-old daughter named Sophie. Until this morning, I worked night shifts as a janitor in this building. I cleaned toilets and emptied trash and tried to be invisible because that's what people like me do in places like this. We stay invisible so we don't cause problems. He paused. 2 weeks ago, I found Vanessa Blackwood unconscious next to the elevator. She had a fever over 103. She was scared. She asked me not to call anyone. I could have ignored that. Probably should have. But I couldn't leave her there alone, so I took her home. I gave her a safe place to recover. My daughter made her laugh over pancakes. For a few hours, we were just people in a kitchen. No titles, no wealth, no expectations. Just people. After she left, I thought that was the end of it. But Adrien Blackwood had other plans. He tested me, pushed me, tried to prove I was just another person trying to use his daughter. And when I wouldn't play his games, when I refused to ask Vanessa for money or protection or anything else, he decided to eliminate the problem. That's what I am to him, a problem to be solved. Ethan's voice got stronger. But I'm not a problem. I'm a father trying to raise his daughter right. I'm a man who works hard and pays his bills and tries to do the right thing even when it's not the smart thing. And I'm someone who cares about Vanessa Blackwood, not because of who she is or what she has, but because of who she was in my kitchen that morning. Someone real, someone human, someone who deserved kindness. A reporter shouted a question. Mr. Carter, are you in a relationship with Miss Blackwood? We're friends. We care about each other. Beyond that, I don't think our personal lives are anyone's business. Another reporter. How much money did Miss Blackwood offer you to make this statement? 0. Nobody offered me anything. I'm here because it's the truth. What do you want from the Blackwood family? I want them to leave me and my daughter alone. That's all. A reporter from the back. Mr. Blackwood's office has released a statement saying you're a disgruntled employee with a history of workplace violations. How do you respond? I respond by asking anyone who believes that to look at my employment record. 3 years, never late, never missed a shift. No complaints until I became inconvenient to the wrong person. Ethan leaned into the microphone. Adrien Blackwood is a powerful man. He's used to controlling narratives, but he can't control the truth. And the truth is simple. I helped his daughter because it was the right thing to do, and he's trying to destroy me for it. Do you have any evidence of Mr. Blackwood's involvement in your termination? I have the timing. I have the coincidences. I have text messages from Adrien Blackwood himself asking if I was having trouble, right before my rent increased. I have enough evidence that anyone paying attention can connect the dots. Rebecca stepped forward then, signaling the press conference was over. But before she could end it, someone shouted from the back, Miss Blackwood, is it true your father has threatened to remove you as CEO if you continue this relationship? Vanessa stepped back to the microphone. My father doesn't have the authority to remove me as CEO. I hold controlling interest in this company. But yes, he's made his displeasure clear. And no, I don't care. I'm 30 years old. I've spent my entire life being the daughter he wanted instead of the person I am. That ends today too. The room went silent. Even the reporters seemed shocked. Vanessa continued. My father built this company on the idea that power matters more than people, that winning matters more than being right. That image matters more than integrity. I don't agree with that philosophy anymore. And if standing with Ethan Carter means standing against my father's version of success, then that's exactly what I'm doing. She stepped away from the podium. Rebecca moved in quickly, ushering both of them toward a side door while reporters shouted questions that neither of them answered. In the elevator going up to Vanessa's office, Ethan finally let himself breathe. That was insane. That was necessary. Vanessa looked at him. Are you okay? I don't know. Ask me in a few hours when this really hits the news. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor. The same floor Ethan used to clean every night. Now he was walking through it with the CEO, past executives who stared like he was an alien invasion. In Vanessa's office, Rebecca was already working her phone. Initial response is good. Social media is split about 60-40 in your favor. The 40% thinks this is a publicity stunt. The 60% thinks it's romantic. It's not romantic, Ethan said. It's just the truth. Truth, romance, same thing to the internet. Rebecca looked up. Adrien Blackwood's team just released a counterstatement. Want to hear it? Not really, Vanessa said. But tell us anyway. Rebecca read from her phone. Adrien Blackwood is disappointed that his daughter has chosen to involve herself with an individual of questionable character. While Mr. Carter may have provided assistance during a difficult time, his subsequent behavior and willingness to exploit that brief encounter for public attention speaks to opportunism rather than altruism. Mr. Blackwood wishes his daughter well and hopes she will eventually recognize the error in judgment she has made. Ethan laughed. He couldn't help it. Error in judgment. That's good. Very paternal. He's going to come at us harder, Vanessa said quietly. This was just the opening shot. Let him come. We told the truth. That has to count for something. In a fair world, yes, but this isn't a fair world. Rebecca looked between them. You two need a strategy. Adrien Blackwood doesn't lose gracefully. He's going to dig into your past, Ethan. Every mistake, every bad decision, every person you've ever wronged. He'll find it and he'll use it. Then he'll find out I'm not perfect. So what? Nobody is. The difference is most people don't have their imperfections broadcasted to the entire city. Rebecca closed her laptop. I need you to think about the worst thing you've ever done, the thing you're most ashamed of, the thing you hope nobody ever finds out, because they're going to find it, and you need to be prepared for how you'll respond when they do. Ethan thought about Sarah leaving. About the year after when he couldn't hold down a job because Sophie was constantly sick and daycare kept calling. About the eviction. About the time he stole groceries because Sophie needed to eat and he was 3 days away from his paycheck. About all the ways he'd failed before he figured out how to be the father Sophie deserved. I've made mistakes, he said slowly. I failed. I've done things I'm not proud of, but I've never stopped trying to do better. And I've never stopped putting Sophie first. If that's not good enough for Adrien Blackwood, then he can go to hell. Vanessa smiled slightly. That's the statement we give if they bring it up. Actually, Rebecca said, that's perfect. Own the mistakes, show the growth, make it about being human instead of being perfect. She stood up. All right, I've got damage control to manage. You two should stay here until the initial frenzy dies down. Going outside right now would be feeding the beast. After Rebecca left, Ethan and Vanessa sat in her enormous office looking at each other like they couldn't quite believe what just happened. We really did that, Ethan said. We really did. What was said? Your father's going to be furious. He's already furious. I got 3 text messages during the press conference telling me I was destroying everything he built. Are you? Destroying everything? I'm destroying the version of me that he built. That's not the same thing. She moved closer. Are you okay? Really? I don't know. I keep waiting for the panic to hit. The realization that I just made everything worse. Did you? Maybe. Probably. But at least now it's all out in the open. No more games, no more tests, just the truth and whatever comes next. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Chen. Sophie's home. Watched the press conference. You were very brave, also very stupid, but mostly brave. Ethan showed Vanessa the message. She laughed, a real laugh, not the careful CEO laugh. I like Mrs. Chen. She'd like you too. She thinks anyone willing to fight my battles must have something wrong with them. She's probably right. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the windows, Chicago spread out in every direction. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that somewhere in this building, a janitor and a CEO were trying to figure out how to survive the mess they'd just created. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now we wait. Wait for my father's next move. Wait for the media to pick this apart. Wait to see if we made the right choice. And if we didn't? Then we deal with the consequences. Together. Together. That word again. It felt bigger now, more real, more dangerous. Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered carefully. Mr. Carter? A woman's voice, professional but not unkind. This is Catherine Wu from Channel 7 News. I'd like to interview you for our evening segment. I'm not interested. Right. I understand, but you should know. We've been investigating Adrien Blackwood for months. Allegations of workplace retaliation. Employees who were fired for crossing him. Your story fits a pattern we've been documenting. An interview with you could be the piece that makes this bigger than just one case. Ethan looked at Vanessa. She was watching him carefully. If I do this interview, what happens? We run it tonight. It goes national tomorrow. Adrien Blackwood's business practices become public knowledge. You become the face of everyone he's ever crushed to maintain power. That sounds like it would make me a target. It would, but it would also make you harder to destroy quietly. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, Mr. Carter. Right now, you're just one man fighting a billionaire. Tomorrow, you could be a movement. I don't want to be a movement. I want to raise my daughter in peace, then politely decline and hope Adrien Blackwood loses interest. But based on what I know about him, that's not how this ends. He doesn't stop until he wins. Ethan hung up and told Vanessa about the call. Catherine Wu is legitimate, Vanessa said. If she's been investigating my father, she probably has evidence we don't. But Ethan, if you do this interview, it becomes bigger than us. It becomes about corporate power and wealth inequality and everything else. You'll lose control of the narrative. Did we ever have control? No, but we could have pretended. I'm tired of pretending. Ethan stood up and walked to the window. Below, the city looked small and manageable. Up here, nothing was manageable. Your father's not going to stop. We both know that. The press conference bought us time, but it didn't solve anything. He's still powerful, still connected, still willing to destroy me to prove a point. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we need to make this bigger than us. Maybe we need to shine enough light that he can't operate in the shadows anymore. That's a risk. Everything about this is a risk. Vanessa joined him at the window. They stood side by side, looking down at the world they were both trying to navigate from different directions. If you do the interview, she said quietly, I'm doing it with you. We're in this together, remember? Your father will see that as betrayal. My father sees everything I do as either obedience or betrayal. There's no middle ground with him, so I might as well choose the betrayal that actually means something. Ethan called Catherine Wu back. I'll do the interview, but not without Vanessa Blackwood. We tell this story together or not at all. Even better, can you be at the studio at 6? We'll be there. After he hung up, Vanessa looked at him with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. We're really doing this. Last chance to back out. I don't want to back out. I want to finish what we started. They left the office together through the back entrance, avoiding the reporters still camped in the lobby. Marcus drove them to the news station in silence. Ethan texted Mrs. Chen that he'd be late, that Sophie should eat dinner without him, that he'd explain everything when he got home. The news station was smaller than he expected, more functional than glamorous. Catherine Wu met them in the green room. She was in her 40s, with gray hair she didn't bother to hide, and an expression that suggested she didn't suffer fools. Mr. Carter, Miss Blackwood, thank you for coming. What do you want from us? Vanessa asked directly. The truth. All of it. How you met. What happened after. How Adrien Blackwood retaliated. Everything. Catherine sat down across from them. I'm going to ask hard questions. Questions that might make you uncomfortable. But I need honest answers. Can you give me that? Yes, Ethan said. Even if those answers make you look bad? Especially then. The only weapon we have is the truth. Might as well use it. The interview lasted 45 minutes. Catherine asked everything. How they met. Why Ethan didn't call security. What happened in his kitchen that morning. How Adrien responded. The rent increase. The school complaint. The termination. She asked about Ethan's past, his failed marriage, his struggles as a single father. She asked Vanessa about her relationship with her father, about the pressure to be perfect, about what it cost to finally push back. Neither of them held back. When it was over, Catherine looked at them with something like sympathy. This airs in 2 hours. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the country will be running with it. Your lives are about to change. They already changed, Ethan said. We're just making it official. Outside the station, Vanessa's car was waiting. She looked at Ethan. Do you want me to drive you home? I should probably take a cab. Less attention. Well, Ethan, after tonight, there's going to be attention no matter what we do. You might as well ride with me. They drove through the city as evening turned to night. The car was quiet, comfortable, nothing like the tension that had defined the last few weeks. Are you scared? Vanessa asked. Terrified. Me too. What scares you, Sak? That we just made everything worse. That my father will come at us harder now. That Sophie will pay the price for our choices. She looked at him. But mostly I'm scared that after all this, we won't survive it. That the pressure will be too much and we'll break. We won't break. How do you know? Because we're already broken, both of us. We've been broken for years. The difference is now we're broken together, and that's better than being broken alone. The car pulled up in front of his house. Paparazzi were camped on the lawn. Cameras started flashing the moment they saw Vanessa's car. Christ, Ethan muttered. They're at my house. We can go somewhere else. A hotel. Somewhere safe. No, this is my home. I'm not letting them chase me away from it. He got out of the car. Immediately, reporters swarmed him. Questions from every direction. Cameras in his face. Lights blinding him. He pushed through them without answering, feeling Vanessa right behind him. Mrs. Chen opened the door before he reached it, glaring at the reporters like they were something she'd scrape off her shoe. "Get inside, both of you, now." They stumbled into the house. Mrs. Chen slammed the door and locked it. "Animals," she muttered. "They've been here for an hour. Sophie's scared." Ethan's heart dropped. "Where is she?" "Her room. I told her the people outside were just confused and would leave soon. She believed me, but she won't believe it much longer." Ethan went down the hallway and opened Sophie's door. She was sitting on her bed, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide. "Daddy, why are all those people here?" "Man." He sat down beside her and pulled her close. "Remember how I told you I was going to explain something important? About Miss Vanessa and me?" "Uh-huh. Well, some people are very interested in that story. So interested that they're being kind of rude about it, but they'll leave soon. And until they do, you're safe in here with me. Are you in trouble?" "No, baby, I'm not in trouble. I just did something that made some powerful people upset." "Did you do a bad thing, Kick?" "No, I did a good thing, but sometimes good things upset the wrong people." Sophie thought about this. Then, "Is Miss Vanessa here?" "She's in the living room. Can she stay for dinner?" "We're having spaghetti." Ethan wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. His daughter, with reporters camped on their lawn and cameras flashing outside, wanted to invite Vanessa for spaghetti. "I think Miss Vanessa would like that very much." They ate dinner at the small kitchen table while reporters waited outside. Mrs. Chen made enough spaghetti for an army, the way she always did when she was stressed. Sophie talked about dinosaurs and school, and how her friend Emma said her dad saw them on the news and said they were famous. "Are we famous now?" Sophie asked Vanessa. "Sort of. Is that okay?" "I guess. But I don't want to be on TV. TV's boring." "That's fair." After dinner, Sophie insisted on showing Vanessa her dinosaur collection. Ethan watched them disappear down the hallway. Sophie's excited voice explaining the difference between a Brachiosaurus and an Apatosaurus, while Vanessa listened with genuine interest. Mrs. Chen elbowed him. "She's good with Sophie." "I know. You're in love with her. I barely know her. You know enough, and she knows you. That's what matters." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple. Everything else is just noise." Maybe she was right. Maybe under all the money and power and pressure, it really was that simple. Two people who cared about each other, trying to figure out if that was enough. Around 9 o'clock, the reporters finally started leaving. One by one, the lights disappeared until the lawn was dark and quiet again. Vanessa's phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls she ignored. Ethan's phone did the same. At 10, Sophie fell asleep on the couch between Ethan and Vanessa, her head on Vanessa's lap. Neither of them moved, not wanting to wake her. "She trusts you," Ethan said quietly. "She trusts everyone. That's what 6-year-olds do." "No, she's careful, especially after her mom left. The fact that she's comfortable with you means something." "What does it mean?" "It means she sees what I see. Someone worth trusting." Vanessa stroked Sophie's hair gently. "I don't know how to do this, Ethan. I don't know how to be part of someone's life without destroying it." "You're not destroying anything. You're just here." "That's enough." "Is it?" "Yeah, it really is." Not. They sat in the quiet house, Sophie sleeping between them, and for just a moment everything felt possible. Like maybe they could survive this. Like maybe truth and stubbornness and caring about each other was enough to fight back against a world that wanted them to stay in their separate lanes. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Catherine Wu. "Interview airs in 5 minutes. Brace yourself." He showed Vanessa. She nodded. They turned on the TV and watched themselves tell the world their story. Watched Ethan talk about finding Vanessa sick and alone. Watched Vanessa explain her father's retaliation. Watched both of them admit they cared about each other despite every reason they shouldn't. When it ended, they sat in silence. "That's it then," Vanessa said. "No going back." "No going back," Ethan agreed. Outside, the night was quiet. Inside, Sophie snored softly, safe and unaware that her father and the CEO had just declared war on one of the most powerful men in Chicago. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tonight, they had this: a small house, a sleeping child, and the fragile hope that sometimes doing the right thing was enough. Even when it wasn't smart, even when it was dangerous, Even when the whole world was watching to see if they'd fail. They'd told the truth. Now they'd live with it. The morning after the interview aired, Ethan woke to find his front lawn covered in news vans. He counted 6 before he stopped counting. Sophie was still asleep, her small body curled under her unicorn blanket, mercifully unaware that their lives had become a spectacle overnight. His phone showed 147 missed calls. Text messages from numbers he didn't recognize filled his screen. Job offers, interview requests, people calling him a hero, people calling him a fraud, marriage proposals from strangers, death threats from others. The internet had found him, dissected him, and formed opinions about whether he deserved to exist in Vanessa Blackwood's world. Mrs. Chen knocked softly on the door at 7. She came in carrying coffee and looking exhausted. "They've been out there since 5 in the morning. I chased off 2 reporters who tried to come into my yard to get a better angle of your house. I'm sorry. I didn't think. Don't apologize. You did what you had to do." She handed him the coffee. "But Ethan, you can't keep Sophie here today. Not with this circus outside. She needs to be somewhere normal. Where's normal when everyone knows who we are? My sister has a cabin 2 hours north. No internet, no cell service, no reporters. I'll take Sophie there for a few days. Let this die down. Mrs. Chen, I can't ask you to..." "You're not asking. I'm telling. That little girl needs peace, and she's not getting it here." Mrs. Chen's expression softened. "You and Vanessa need to figure out what happens next. You can't do that while protecting Sophie from cameras. Let me take her somewhere safe." Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to keep Sophie close where he could see her, touch her, know she was okay. But Mrs. Chen was right. This house wasn't safe anymore, not safe from cameras, not safe from strangers with opinions, not safe from whatever Adrien Blackwood was planning next. "Okay, but you call me twice a day. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you bring her home immediately." "Deal." "Booking. Bum. Short-term." They packed Sophie's bag quietly. When she woke up, Ethan told her she was going on an adventure with Mrs. Chen to a cabin in the woods. Sophie's eyes lit up. "Like a vacation." "Exactly like a vacation. Can I bring Gerald?" She meant the stuffed rabbit, not the snowman. Gerald wouldn't miss it. Mrs. Chen loaded Sophie into her car through the back alley, avoiding the reporters out front. Sophie waved from the window as they pulled away, excited and oblivious. Ethan watched until the car disappeared around the corner, feeling like he'd just sent his heart away in a Honda Civic. Inside the empty house, everything felt too quiet. He made more coffee, stared at his phone, deleted messages without reading them. At 8:30, someone knocked on the door. Not a reporter's knock. This one was deliberate, authoritative, the kind of knock that said the person on the other side was used to doors opening. Ethan looked through the peephole and saw 2 men in suits. One was Adrien Blackwood. The other was a lawyer type. Expensive suit, expensive briefcase, expensive everything. Ethan opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Mr. Carter." Adrian's voice was calm, too calm. "We need to talk. I've got nothing to say to you." "Then listen, 5 minutes of your time." "The last time I gave someone from your family 5 minutes, it turned into this." Ethan gestured at the news vans. "So no. Whatever you came to say it from the porch." Adrien looked at him with something that might have been respect or might have been calculation. "Fine. I came to offer you a settlement. $2 million. You sign an NDA. You disappear from my daughter's life. You never speak about this situation again. In exchange, I drop all legal action. I stop the investigations into your background. And I make sure you and your daughter can live comfortably somewhere far from Chicago. You want to pay me to disappear. I want to pay you to be smart. You've had your moment. You told your story. Now take the money and move on before this gets worse." "Worse for who?" "For everyone, but especially for you." Adrian's expression hardened. "You think you won by going on television? You think public sympathy protects you?" "Mr. Carter, I've destroyed men with more resources and more support than you'll ever have. The only reason you're still standing is because you haven't given me sufficient cause to knock you down. Don't mistake my restraint for weakness." "Is that a threat?" It's a promise. Take the money. Leave Chicago. Forget my daughter exists, or I will make you wish you had. The lawyer stepped forward and held out a folder. The settlement agreement, sign it now. The money transfers today. You'll never have to work again. Your daughter will go to any school she wants. You'll be set for life. Ethan looked at the folder. $2 million. More money than he'd see in 10 lifetimes of night shifts. Enough to give Sophie everything he couldn't afford now. Education, stability, a future without struggle. All he had to do was walk away from Vanessa and pretend the last 3 weeks never happened. No, Ethan said. Adrien's jaw tightened. Excuse me? I said no. Keep your money. Keep your threats. I'm not signing anything. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Think about your daughter. Think about what you're giving up. I'm thinking about her. I'm thinking about what kind of man I want her to see when she looks at me. And that man doesn't take bribes from bullies. Ethan met Adrien's eyes. Your daughter asked me not to call security because she was afraid of you. She was sick and scared and alone. And the person she was most afraid of wasn't a stranger or a criminal. It was her own father. That should tell you everything you need to know about the kind of man you are. You don't know anything about me or my relationship with Vanessa. I know she smiled more in my kitchen eating burned pancakes than she probably did in a year, living your version of success. I know she felt safe in a house with a broken porch light and peeling paint because it was the first place in a decade where nobody expected her to be perfect. And I know you hate that. You hate that she found something real with someone you can't control. Adrien's face went cold. This conversation is over. You had your chance to do this the easy way. There was never an easy way, not with you. Adrien turned and walked back to his car, a black sedan that probably cost more than Ethan's entire house. The lawyer followed, giving Ethan one last look that said he was an idiot for turning down the offer. Maybe he was. Maybe Mrs. Chen was right, and he was choosing pride over security. But he'd watched his mother refuse help from his father for years, refuse to compromise her dignity for comfort, and she'd been the strongest person he ever knew. If she could do it alone with nothing, he could do it with Vanessa's support and the truth on his side. His phone rang. Vanessa. Adrien just left my office. He told me he offered you money. $2 million. I turned it down. Ethan, don't. Don't tell me I should have taken it. Don't tell me I'm being stupid. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because my father doesn't make empty threats. If he said he'll destroy you, he means it. Let him try. I'm done being scared of him. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Where's Sophie? Safe. Mrs. Chen took her to a cabin, away from cameras. Good. That's good. Another pause. Can I see you? I need to see you. Reporters are camped outside. I'll figure it out. Just tell me I can come over. Yeah, come over. She arrived an hour later in an unmarked car driven by Marcus. The reporters didn't recognize the vehicle until Vanessa stepped out, and by then she was already through Ethan's front door. Inside, she looked different, tired. The CEO polish was cracked, showing the person underneath. She stood in his living room like she didn't know what to do with her hands. My father's planning something, she said without preamble. Something big. He's been in meetings with his lawyers all morning. He's angry, Ethan, really angry. And when he gets like this, people get hurt. I'm already hurt. What else can he do? He can go after Sophie, make the custody case real instead of just a threat. He can bury you in legal fees until you can't afford to fight. He can make sure every job you apply for mysteriously falls through. He can turn your life into a nightmare that never ends. So what do you want me to do? Take the money and leave? No. I want you to fight. But I want you to understand what you're fighting. She moved closer. My father has spent 40 years building power. He knows every judge, every politician, every media outlet in this city. He doesn't fight fair, and he doesn't stop until he wins. Going against him means accepting that you might lose everything. I've already lost everything before. I survived. This is different. Before you lost things because life happened. This time, you'll lose things because a man with infinite resources decided to take them from you personally. That's a different kind of losing. Ethan sat down on the couch. So what do I do? Just give up? Let him win because he's richer and more connected? Or, No. You do what you've been doing. You tell the truth. You stay visible. You make it costly for him to come after you. Vanessa sat beside him. But you also need to be smart. You need a lawyer. A good one. Someone who knows how to fight people like my father. I can't afford a good lawyer. I can. No. If you pay for my lawyer, it proves your father's point, that I'm using you for money. Ethan, this isn't about pride, us. Yes, it is. It's about being able to look Sophie in the eye and tell her I fought my own battles. It's about being a man instead of a charity case. He looked at her. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I need to handle this myself. You can't handle this yourself. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Then I'll fail. But at least I'll fail on my own terms. So Vanessa looked at him with frustration and something else. Something that looked like she was seeing him clearly for the first time and didn't like what she saw. You're going to lose Sophie because you're too stubborn to accept help. You know that, right? The words hit like a punch. Don't say that. It's true. My father is going to file for emergency custody. He's going to claim you're an unfit parent who exposed Sophie to dangerous situations. He's going to bring up every mistake you've ever made and use it to prove you can't take care of her. And without a lawyer who knows how to counter that, you're going to lose. Not because you're a bad father, because the system protects people with money and destroys people without it. So I should just give up now? Let your father win because fighting back is too expensive? I'm saying you should let me help you fight. I'm saying we do this together like we promised. Together doesn't mean you bankrolling my legal defense while I pretend I'm independent. Then what does it mean? I don't know. Ethan stood up, frustrated. I don't know what this is or what it's supposed to be. All I know is that accepting your money makes me exactly what your father thinks I am. And I can't do that. I can't prove him right. He's already right about one thing. You are too proud for your own good. Maybe. But pride is all I've got left. Ashi, Chwarsh, Suwit. They stood in the small living room, angry and scared and not knowing how to fix any of it. Outside, reporters waited for drama. Inside, they were providing it without cameras. Vanessa's phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. It's my father. He never calls me directly. She answered, What do you want? Even from across the room, Ethan could hear Adrien's voice, cold and precise. I'm holding a press conference in 1 hour. I'm announcing that Blackwood Global is filing for emergency custody of Sophie Carter on the grounds that her father has demonstrated consistently poor judgment and has placed her in potentially dangerous situations. I'm also announcing that we're filing a restraining order against Ethan Carter, barring him from coming within 500 feet of you or any Blackwood property. You can either attend the press conference and support these actions, or you can continue your association with Mr. Carter and accept the consequences of that choice. What consequences? I'm calling an emergency board meeting. I'm going to propose removing you as CEO based on conduct detrimental to the company. I have the votes. All I need is cause, and your public association with a man who is clearly using you for personal gain provides that cause. So you have a choice, Vanessa. Your position or your boyfriend. Power or whatever you think you found with him. Choose. The line went dead. Vanessa stood frozen, phone in her hand, face white. He's going after Sophie, she whispered. He's actually filing for custody. Ethan felt the floor drop out from under him. He can't do that. He has no legal standing. He doesn't need standing. He needs lawyers and judges he's done favors for and a system that believes rich people know better than poor people. He's going to claim you're unfit, that I'm a dangerous influence, that Sophie deserves better than a father who cleans toilets and makes bad decisions. Sophie is mine. He can't just take her. He can try, and with his resources, he might succeed. Vanessa looked at him. I have to go to that press conference. What? If I don't, he removes me as CEO. And if I lose my position, I lose my platform. I lose my ability to fight him publicly. I lose everything that makes me useful to you in this fight. So you're going to stand next to him while he files for custody of my daughter? I'm going to be in his room so I know exactly what he's doing, so I can counter it, so you can protect your own position while my daughter's future hangs in the balance? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Your father is trying to take Sophie away from me, and you're talking about board meetings and corporate politics. Like any of that matters more than my daughter. It all matters. Don't you see that? If I lose my position, I lose my ability to protect you. I become just another person Adrien Blackwood can ignore. But if I stay as CEO, I have power. I have resources. I have leverage to fight him. And what do I have? What am I supposed to do while you're at your father's press conference watching him file paperwork to destroy my family? Das ihm gesagt. Vanessa looked at him with tears in her eyes. You're supposed to trust me. Trust that I know how to fight him. Trust that I'm not choosing my career over you. Trust that sometimes the smart move looks like betrayal when it's actually strategy. I trusted my wife. I trusted her when she said she just needed space. I trusted her when she said she'd be back. I trusted her right up until the moment she signed away custody and left town. So forgive me if I'm not great at trusting people who tell me to wait while they figure things out. I'm not Sarah. No, you're worse. Because at least Sarah was honest about not wanting this life. You keep saying you want it while making choices that prove you don't. The words hung in the air like poison. Vanessa flinched like he'd hit her. You don't mean that. I mean every word. You want to be with me? Prove it. Skip the press conference. Stand with me instead of your father. Choose me over the empire he built. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Either you're with me or you're not. Either you trust that we can fight him together, or you go play corporate games while my daughter's life falls apart. But you don't get to do both. You don't get to tell me you care while standing next to the man who's trying to take everything from me. Vanessa stared at him. Vanessa, you're asking me to give up everything I've worked for. I'm asking you to choose, and apparently that's too hard. Ethan, go to your press conference. Save your career. I'll figure out the rest on my own. Don't do this. Don't push me away because you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being tested. Tired of feeling like I have to prove I'm worth caring about. Your father wanted to know if I'd ask you for money. I didn't. He wanted to know if I'd use you for access. I didn't. Now he's using my daughter to make you choose, and apparently you're choosing him. I'm choosing to be smart about this. Get out. What? Get out of my house. Go to your press conference. Go save your position. Go be the CEO your father built. Just go. Vanessa looked at him with something that might have been heartbreak or might have been relief. Then she walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the knob, and turned back. I love you. I know you don't believe that right now. But I love you and Sophie and this life you've built from nothing. And I'm going to fight for it even if you won't let me fight beside you. She left before he could respond. The door closed quietly. Through the window, Ethan watched her get into Marcus's car and drive away toward whatever choice she was making. He sat on the couch where Sophie had slept the night before and tried to breathe. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Carter? This is Daniel Reeves. I'm an attorney specializing in family law. I heard about Adrien Blackwood's custody filing, and I'd like to offer my services pro bono. Why would you do that? Because I've been fighting men like Adrien Blackwood for 20 years. Because I watched your interview and recognized what he's doing. And because every kid deserves a father who fights for them the way you're fighting for Sophie. I don't need money. I need to beat Adrien Blackwood in court. That's payment enough. I can't afford to owe anyone. You don't owe me anything. You show up, you tell the truth, and you let me handle the legal strategy. That's the deal. Ethan wanted to say no, wanted to maintain his pride and independence, but Vanessa's words echoed in his head. You're going to lose Sophie because you're too stubborn to accept help. Okay, he said finally. When do we start? Oh, now. I need everything about your relationship with Sophie. Medical records, school records, character references, anything that proves you're a good father. Adrien Blackwood is going to bring up your eviction 3 years ago, your job instability, every late payment and tough month you've had. We counter with evidence of what you've built despite those challenges. They talked for an hour. Ethan laid out his entire life, the good and the ugly, the successes and the failures, everything that made him both a good father and an imperfect human. Daniel took notes without judgment. This is good, Daniel said when they finished. We've got a solid case. You're employed, Sophie's thriving, there's no evidence of neglect or abuse. The problem is Adrien Blackwood doesn't need evidence. He needs perception. He'll paint you as unstable and Sophie as at risk. We fight that with character witnesses and documentation of stability. What if it's not enough, Wad? Then we appeal. And we keep appealing until we win or run out of courts. But Ethan, I'm going to be honest with you. The deck is stacked. Rich men who want to take kids from poor fathers usually succeed. Not because they should, because they can afford to fight longer. How long? Months. Maybe years if he drags it out. During that time, Sophie might end up in temporary foster care while the case plays out. No, I'm not letting that happen. Why you might not have a choice. If the judge rules in his favor at the emergency hearing, when's the emergency hearing? Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Adrien fast-tracked it. He's got connections in the family court system. Tomorrow. Ethan had less than 24 hours before a judge decided if Sophie stayed with him or got taken away while lawyers argued about his fitness as a parent. After Daniel hung up, Ethan called Mrs. Chen. How's Sophie? Perfect. She found her frog in the creek. Named him Stephen. I've heard about Stephen for the last 40 minutes. Ethan smiled despite everything. Don't let her bring Stephen home. Already told her Stephen has a family here that would miss him. She understood. Mrs. Chen's voice softened. What's wrong? I can hear it in your voice. Adrien Blackwood filed for emergency custody. There's a hearing tomorrow. Silence. Then, that bastard. Using a child to win a fight. I need character references. People who can testify that I'm a good father. Would you? I'll be there. You know I'll be there. She paused. Does Sophie know? No. And she's not going to know until I know what happens. Let her have one more day of thinking everything's okay. Ethan, she's a smart girl. She'll figure out something's wrong. Then lie to her. Tell her everything's fine. Give her one more day of normal before everything changes. After they hung up, Ethan went to Sophie's room. It looked empty without her chaos. No toys scattered across the floor, no dinosaur books piled on the bed, no stuffed animals staging elaborate adventures across the furniture. Just a quiet room waiting for a little girl who might not get to come home. He sat on her bed and let himself imagine the worst. Sophie in foster care, crying herself to sleep in a strange house with strangers who didn't know she needed Gerald the rabbit to sleep, or that she was afraid of ceiling fans because one fell in their old apartment. Sophie believing her father abandoned her the same way her mother did. Sophie growing up thinking she wasn't worth fighting for. His phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. I didn't go to the press conference. I told my father if he wants my position, he can take it. But I'm not standing next to him while he destroys you. I'm with you, Ethan. Even if you don't want me to be. He stared at the message. Vanessa had chosen. Not her career, not her father's approval. Him. She'd chosen him even after he'd pushed her away and accused her of abandoning him when things got hard. He called her. She answered on the first ring. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry for what I said, for pushing you away, for asking you to choose between everything you've built and this mess we're in. You were right to push. I was talking about strategy when your daughter's life was on the line. That wasn't okay. You were trying to help. I just couldn't see it through the panic. Where do we go from here? I've got a lawyer, pro bono guy who hates your father and wants to beat him in court. The hearing's tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. Vanessa, if you show up, your father will use it against me. He'll say you're a bad influence, that I'm exposing Sophie to inappropriate relationships. Let him say it. I'm tired of hiding, tired of calculating every move. You asked me to choose, and I chose. I'm choosing you every day until this is over, however it ends. It might end badly. We might lose. Then we lose together. But at least we tried. They talked until midnight. Not about strategy or custody hearings or press conferences, just about small things. Sophie's dinosaur collection. Vanessa's terrible relationship with her mother, who died when she was 12. Ethan's mother, who taught him that dignity mattered more than comfort. The ordinary details of lives that had collided during a storm and somehow gotten tangled together in ways neither of them planned. At one point, Vanessa said something that hit Ethan hard. I've spent 30 years trying to earn my father's respect, trying to prove I was worthy of the empire he built. And I realize today that I'll never earn it, because what he respects isn't people, it's obedience. And I'm done being obedient. What does that mean for you? It means I'm stepping down as CEO. I'm taking my shares in my trust fund and I'm walking away from Blackwood Global. Let him find someone else to mold into his perfect successor. Vanessa, you love that company. I love the idea of that company. The version where corporations can do good and profit doesn't have to come at the expense of people. But my father's version isn't that. It's just power for power's sake. And I don't want that anymore. What do you want? I want to wake up in a house that feels like home instead of a showroom. I want to have breakfast without calculating every word. I want to be around people who like me for who I am instead of what I can do for them. A pause. I want to see if Sophie still likes me when I'm not a CEO, when I'm just Vanessa, with no power and no money and nothing to offer except myself. She'll love you. Kids don't care about any of that stuff. You care. I can hear it in your voice when you worry about being enough for her. That's different. I'm her father. I'm supposed to provide. And you do. You provide safety and love in a home that feels like a home. That's more than most kids get from fathers who make millions. Vanessa sighed. I'm scared about tomorrow. Me too. What if the judge rules against you? Then I appeal, and I keep appealing until I win or die trying. Very dramatic. I learned from the best. You're the one who declared war on your father in front of the entire city. Fair point. He could hear her smile through the phone. Ethan? Yeah? Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you for letting me be part of this, for not giving up on me when I was being strategic instead of human, for showing me what it looks like to fight for something that matters. You showed me what it looks like to be brave enough to walk away from everything you know because it's the right thing to do. I'd say we're even. They hung up after promising to meet at the courthouse in the morning. Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet his mind enough to sleep. He thought about Sophie at the cabin, probably asleep with Gerald clutched to her chest. He thought about tomorrow, and judges and lawyers, and a billionaire who wanted to take his daughter away just to prove a point. He thought about Vanessa choosing him over empire, and wondered if he was worth the price she'd paid. At 3 a.m, his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Carter, this is Adrien Blackwood. I'm calling to make one final offer. I'm not interested in your offers. You should be. I'm willing to drop the custody case entirely. You keep Sophie. You keep your life. You keep your dignity. All you have to do is convince my daughter to come home. Tell her you're not interested. Tell her this was a mistake. Break her heart gently, and I'll leave you alone. You want me to hurt her so she comes running back to you. I want her to remember who she is and where she belongs. And she's not going to do that while she's playing house with a janitor who makes her feel like slumming is noble. She doesn't think she's slumming. She thinks she's finally being honest about what she wants. And what does she want? A life of poverty, struggle? A man who can't provide for her the way she deserves? You think you're saving her, but you're dragging her down to your level. Maybe your level isn't as high as you think it is. Maybe being a good person matters more than being a powerful one. Adrien laughed. You really believe that, don't you? You really think love and integrity and other fairy tale nonsense will protect you? Let me tell you what protects people, Mr. Carter. Money, power, the ability to make problems disappear. You have none of those things, which means tomorrow, when you stand in front of that judge, you're going to lose. Not because you're a bad father, because I'm a better enemy than you are a fighter. We'll see. Yes, we will. Sleep well, Mr. Carter. It's the last peaceful night you'll have for a very long time. The line went dead. Ethan didn't sleep. He lay in the dark and waited for morning, knowing that in a few hours, his entire life would change. Either he'd keep Sophie and find a way to survive Adrien Blackwood's wrath, or he'd lose her and spend the rest of his life trying to get her back. There was no middle ground, no compromise, just winning or losing, and he'd been losing for most of his life. But he'd never been fighting for something that mattered this much. At 6 a.m., he got up and made coffee. At 7, he called Mrs. Chen and told her not to tell Sophie about the hearing. Let her stay at the cabin where she was safe and happy and unaware that her father was fighting to keep her. At 8, he put on his only suit, the one he'd worn to his mother's funeral 4 years ago, and stood in front of the mirror trying to look like someone a judge would trust with a child. He looked tired, scared, like exactly what he was. A man with everything on the line and no idea if he was strong enough to win, but he looked like a father. And maybe that would be enough. At 9, Vanessa pulled up in front of his house. Not in Marcus's car, not in some corporate sedan. In a regular car that she'd apparently rented because showing up in a driver would look bad. She was wearing a simple dress. No designer labels visible. No obvious wealth. She looked like someone who cared about being present instead of impressive. They drove to the courthouse together without talking much. What was there to say? Everything had been said. Now they just had to survive whatever came next. The courthouse was old, worn, the kind of building that had seen 1,000 families destroyed by decisions made in windowless rooms by judges who couldn't possibly understand every life they reshaped. Daniel Reeves met them in the lobby. He was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 40, with an energy that suggested he treated every case like a personal vendetta against injustice. "Ready?" Daniel asked. "No, Ethan said honestly. But let's do it anyway." They walked into the courtroom together. Adrien Blackwood was already there with 3 lawyers. He looked at Vanessa with disappointment and at Ethan with contempt. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. And Ethan Carter, former janitor and current father, prepared to fight for the only thing in the world that mattered. Judge Patricia Moreno looked like she'd seen every kind of custody case Chicago could produce and stopped being impressed by any of them years ago. She sat behind her desk with reading glasses perched on her nose, flipping through Adrien Blackwood's emergency filing with an expression that gave nothing away. "Mr. Blackwood," she said without looking up, "you're asking this court to remove a 6-year-old child from her father's custody based on allegations of poor judgment and potentially dangerous situations. Can you clarify what specific incidents prompted this filing?" Yes. Adrien's lead attorney stood. His name was Harrison Webb, and he looked like every corporate lawyer who'd ever crushed regular people for a living. "Your Honor, Mr. Carter has demonstrated a pattern of instability. 3 years ago, he was evicted from his apartment. His employment history shows 6 different jobs in 4 years. He works night shifts, leaving his daughter in the care of neighbors. And most concerning, he recently brought a stranger into his home, a woman he barely knew, and exposed his daughter to this individual without proper vetting or consideration of risk. The stranger was my daughter," Adrien said, leaning forward, "Vanessa Blackwood, and while I appreciate Mr. Carter's assistance during her illness, his decision to remove her from our building without notifying security or medical personnel shows dangerously poor judgment. What if she'd had a medical emergency? What if something had happened to her under his care? He prioritized her request for secrecy over her safety and her family's right to know her whereabouts." Yes. Judge Moreno looked at Ethan. "Mr. Carter, how do you respond?" Daniel stood before Ethan could. "Your Honor, my client found a woman with a fever over 103 degrees, terrified and asking not to be reported to the very people Mr. Blackwood now claims had her best interests at heart. He made a judgment call based on what the situation required, compassion for someone in distress. To characterize that as dangerous is to suggest kindness itself is risky. Kindness can be risky when it involves a 6-year-old child," Harrison countered. "Mr. Carter's daughter was exposed to a sick woman, a stranger in their home, and a situation that could have ended very differently. The fact that it ended well doesn't excuse the poor decision-making that created the risk in the first place." "Miss Blackwood wasn't a risk to anyone," Ethan said, unable to stay quiet. "She was sick and scared, and I helped her. My daughter was never in danger. She was asleep most of the time. And when she did meet Vanessa, it was over breakfast in our kitchen. That's not dangerous. That's just being decent." Judge Moreno held up a hand. "Mr. Carter, let your attorney speak for you." "With respect, Your Honor, my attorney wasn't there. I was. And I'm not going to sit here while they twist helping someone into evidence that I'm a bad father." "Your employment history speaks for itself," Harrison said smoothly. 6 jobs in 4 years, currently unemployed after being terminated from Blackwood Global for protocol violations. How exactly do you plan to provide for your daughter without income?" "I'll find another job. I always do." "And in the meantime, while you're searching, what happens to Sophie?" Daniel cut in. "Mr. Carter was terminated in retaliation for his refusal to accept a financial settlement from Mr. Blackwood. The termination was not based on legitimate performance issues, but on corporate pressure from the very man now claiming concern for the child's welfare. Adrien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I had nothing to do with Mr. Carter's termination. That was a personnel decision made by human resources based on documented violations. Violations that mysteriously appeared only after Mr. Carter declined your $2 million offer to disappear from your daughter's life, Daniel said. Your Honor, this entire filing is retaliatory. Adrien Blackwood is using the family court system to punish a man who had the audacity to treat his daughter like a human being instead of corporate royalty. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Reeves, Judge Moreno said. I can prove it. I have text messages from Adrien Blackwood to my client, sent hours before his rent was raised, asking if he was having trouble. I have documentation of an anonymous complaint to Child Services filed the day after Mr. Carter refused the settlement. I have evidence of a systematic campaign to destroy my client's life, all because he wouldn't take money to walk away from Vanessa Blackwood. Harrison stood again. Your Honor, Mr. Reeves is conflating unrelated issues. My client's personal relationship with his daughter is separate from this custody matter. The question before this court is simple. Is Sophie Carter safe in her father's care? The evidence suggests she is not. What evidence? Ethan demanded. Show me one piece of actual evidence that Sophie's been neglected or harmed or anything other than loved and cared for. Your living situation is unstable. Your income is non-existent. Your judgment is questionable at best. My living situation is a house with a roof and heat and food in the refrigerator. My income will be fine as soon as I find work, which I will because I've never stopped working since Sophie was born. And my judgment is the judgment of a father who puts his daughter first every single day, even when it's hard, even when I'm exhausted, even when people like you try to make me feel like I'm not enough. The courtroom went quiet. Judge Moreno looked at Ethan over her glasses. Mr. Carter, I understand you're emotional about this, but the court needs to look at objective factors. Mr. Blackwood has raised legitimate concerns about stability. Can you address those concerns? Daniel opened his folder. I have character references from Sophie's teachers, her pediatrician, neighbors, and former employers. All of them describe Ethan Carter as a devoted father who prioritizes his daughter's well-being above everything else. I have Sophie's school records showing perfect attendance, good grades, and a well-adjusted child. I have medical records showing all vaccinations current, regular checkups, no signs of neglect or abuse. The only instability in Sophie's life right now is this custody filing from a man who has never met her and has no relationship with her whatsoever. Mr. Blackwood doesn't need a prior relationship to file for emergency custody if he has legitimate concerns about the child's safety, Harrison said. He needs more than manufactured concerns designed to manipulate his daughter into compliance. Daniel shot back. This isn't about Sophie's safety. This is about Adrien Blackwood punishing Ethan Carter for being someone Vanessa actually cares about. Your Honor, Harrison said, I move that we hear testimony from Vanessa Blackwood herself. Let her explain why she's chosen to involve herself with a man of such limited means and questionable stability. Let her clarify whether this relationship is genuine or whether Mr. Carter has manipulated her during a vulnerable time. Judge Moreno looked at Vanessa, who'd been sitting silently beside Ethan. Miss Blackwood, you're welcome to testify if you wish, though you're not required to. Vanessa stood. I'd like to testify, Your Honor. She moved to the witness stand. Harrison approached her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miss Blackwood, how long have you known Ethan Carter? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And in that time, you've chosen to publicly align yourself with him, correct? I've chosen to tell the truth about how we met and what happened after. You were sick, vulnerable. He took you to his home. Don't you think it's possible that you're confusing gratitude with something deeper? No. I know the difference between gratitude and connection. Do you? Because your judgment has been questionable lately, leaving the building during a blizzard while running a high fever, refusing medical care, allowing yourself to be taken to a stranger's home rather than calling your family or security. These aren't the actions of someone thinking clearly. I was thinking clearly enough to know I didn't want my father using my illness against me. I was right about that, by the way. He's using everything against me now. Adrien's expression tightened, but he didn't speak. Harrison continued. Your relationship with your father has always been complicated, hasn't it? Most parent-child relationships are complicated, but yours particularly so. Your father has high expectations. He's groomed you to run his empire. That must create pressure, resentment, perhaps. What's your point? My point is that choosing Ethan Carter might be less about him and more about rebelling against your father, a way to assert independence by dating someone as different from Adrien Blackwood as possible. Vanessa smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. You think I'm slumming? That I picked Ethan because he's poor and my father would hate it? I think you're 30 years old and perhaps trying to establish your own identity separate from your father's shadow. That's understandable. But using Ethan Carter and his daughter as pawns in that struggle isn't fair to them. I'm not using anyone. I care about Ethan. I care about Sophie. And I'm tired of people assuming that caring about someone outside my social class must be rebellion or confusion or anything except what it actually is, recognizing a good person when I meet one. Even if that recognition comes at the cost of your position, your family, your future. Those things aren't my future. They're my father's idea of my future. There's a difference. Harrison turned to Judge Moreno. Your Honor, I think Miss Blackwood's testimony confirms what we suspected. She's in the middle of a personal crisis, and Ethan Carter represents an escape from expectations rather than a genuine relationship. That makes her an unreliable judge of his character and his fitness as a parent. I'm not an unreliable judge of anything, Vanessa said sharply. I've spent my entire life evaluating people, reading situations, making decisions that affect thousands of employees and billions of dollars. I know manipulation when I see it, and I know authenticity when I see it. Ethan is authentic, my father is manipulative, and this custody filing is proof of that. Your Honor, Adrien said, standing for the first time. May I speak? Judge Moreno nodded. Go ahead, Mr. Blackwood. Adrien moved to the center of the room. He didn't approach the witness stand or the bench. He just stood there, commanding attention the way powerful men always did. I love my daughter. Everything I've done has been to protect her and prepare her for the responsibilities she was born to carry. I built an empire so she'd never struggle, so she'd never know what it feels like to worry about rent or food, or whether she'd make it through the month. And now she's throwing all of that away for a man she's known for 3 weeks. A man with no prospects, no stability, and a child he can barely support. You ask why I'm concerned? Because I've watched Vanessa make this choice before. She finds broken things and tries to fix them. Stray cats, failed businesses, people who need saving, and it always ends the same way, with her hurt and the broken things still broken. I'm not a broken thing, Ethan said. No, you're a struggling single father who saw an opportunity and took it. I don't blame you for that. I blame myself for raising a daughter who can't recognize when she's being used. Vanessa stood. Your Honor, may I respond? Go ahead. She looked at her father, really looked at him, with something that might have been pity or might have been grief. You're right about one thing, she said quietly. I do try to fix broken things. But the broken thing I've been trying to fix my whole life wasn't Ethan or stray cats or failed businesses. It was you. I spent 30 years trying to make you proud, trying to earn love that should have been unconditional, trying to prove I was worthy of being your daughter. And I finally realized something. You don't want a daughter. You want a successor. You don't want me to be happy. You want me to be successful according to your definition of success. And those things aren't the same. Vanessa, I'm not finished. You filed for custody of Sophie to hurt Ethan and control me. You're using a 6-year-old child as a weapon in a fight she doesn't even understand. That's not love. That's not protection. That's cruelty, and I'm done pretending it's anything else. The courtroom was silent. Adrien stared at his daughter like she was a stranger. Judge Moreno cleared her throat. Mr. Blackwood, I'm inclined to agree with Miss Blackwood's assessment. This filing appears to be motivated by personal grievance rather than genuine concern for the child's welfare. Unless you have concrete evidence that Sophie Carter is being abused or neglected, and nothing presented today suggests she is, I'm going to deny your petition for emergency custody. Harrison stepped forward. Your Honor, with respect, I've made my decision, Mr. Webb. This case is denied. Sophie Carter remains in her father's custody. Mr. Blackwood, if you wish to pursue this further, you'll need to bring substantial evidence of actual harm, not speculation about instability. She looked at Ethan. Mr. Carter, you have custody of your daughter, but I'm ordering follow-up visits from Child Services over the next 6 months to ensure Sophie's well-being. If there are concerns, we'll revisit this. Understood? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. It was over. Ethan stood on shaky legs, barely processing what had just happened. He'd won. Sophie was his. The nightmare was over. Except when he looked at Adrien Blackwood's face, he knew it wasn't over. Not really. Adrien approached him as people filed out of the courtroom. Vanessa moved to intercept, but Adrien held up a hand. I just want to talk. 1 minute. Ethan nodded to Vanessa that it was okay. She stepped back reluctantly. Adrien looked at him with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. You won. I kept my daughter. That's not winning. That's just not losing everything. Fair distinction. Adrien was quiet for a moment. I underestimated you. You tried to destroy me. Yes, I did. Because I thought you were like everyone else who sees my daughter and sees opportunity. I was wrong. Being wrong doesn't undo what you did. No, it doesn't. But perhaps it explains why I did it. Adrien glanced at Vanessa, who was watching them from across the room. She's never looked at anyone the way she looks at you. Not in 30 years. And that terrified me. Because the last time she cared about someone that much, they destroyed her. Used her connections to launch their own career, then left when they didn't need her anymore. I couldn't watch that happen again. So you decided to destroy me first. I decided to test you, to see if you'd prove me right. Every test you passed, I escalated, waiting for you to break, waiting for you to show me who you really were. Adrien's expression shifted. You never broke. You never asked Vanessa for money. You never tried to leverage proximity to our family. You just kept being exactly who you appeared to be, a father fighting for his daughter. I've spent 40 years dealing with people who want something from me. I didn't know what to do with someone who didn't. You could have just left us alone? I could have, but that's not who I am. I'm a man who solves problems, and you were a problem I couldn't solve. That made you dangerous. I'm not dangerous. I'm just a guy trying to raise his kid right. See, that's what makes you dangerous. You remind Vanessa of what life could be without the empire, without the pressure, without me. Adrien looked at his daughter again. She's going to choose you. You know that, right? She's going to walk away from everything I built, and there's nothing I can do to stop her. Maybe you're not supposed to stop her. Maybe you're supposed to let her be happy. Is she happy with you? I think so. You'd have to ask her. I'm asking you. Do you make my daughter happy? Ethan thought about Vanessa laughing at Sophie's dinosaur stories. Vanessa falling asleep on his couch during the press conference aftermath. Vanessa standing next to him in court even though it cost her everything. Yeah, I think I do. And she makes me happy too. Not because of who she is or what she has. Just because of who she is when she's with me. Someone real. Someone honest. Someone who doesn't have to be perfect. Adrien was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Ethan never expected. He extended his hand. Take care of her, both of them. If you hurt my daughter, or that little girl, I will destroy you in ways you can't imagine. But if you make them happy, if you give them the life they deserve, then you have my respect. And possibly, eventually, my blessing. Ethan shook his hand. I'll settle for you just leaving us alone. That I can do. Adrien turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Carter, you're a better man than I gave you credit for. I hope you prove me right about that. He walked out of the courtroom, lawyers trailing behind him like ducks following a swan. Vanessa approached Ethan slowly. What did he say to you? He said you're going to choose me, and he's letting you go. Letting me go, Vanessa repeated, like I needed his permission. I think he needed to give it, needed to feel like he still had some control over the situation. Do you think he meant it? About leaving us alone? I think he's tired of fighting a battle he can't win. Your father's a lot of things, but he's not stupid. He sees that this isn't going away, that we're not going away, and he's choosing to accept it before he loses you completely. De was Paris Bolches. Vanessa leaned against Ethan, exhausted. I'm out of a job, out of a family, out of every structure that defined my life for 30 years, and I have no idea what comes next. What do you want to come next? Honestly, I want to pick up Sophie from that cabin and take her for ice cream. I want to have dinner in your kitchen with the broken stove. I want to help her with homework and read bedtime stories and just be normal for a while. Is that crazy? That's the sanest thing you've said in 3 weeks. They left the courthouse together, walking past reporters who shouted questions neither of them answered. The story would run regardless of whether they cooperated. Former CEO walks away from empire. For janitor, billionaire heiress chooses love over money. All the headlines that reduce their lives to clickbait. But none of those headlines would capture what actually mattered. That two people from different worlds had found something real in a kitchen during a storm. That sometimes kindness mattered more than strategy. That love didn't care about tax brackets or social class, or whether it made sense to anyone except the people living it. Mrs. Chen brought Sophie home 3 days later. By then, the reporters had mostly dispersed, moving on to the next scandal. Sophie burst through the front door like a hurricane, talking a mile a minute about the cabin and the creek and Stephen the frog, who she definitely hadn't tried to bring home, even though Mrs. Chen said otherwise. Daddy, Miss Vanessa! Guess what I learned? Frogs can jump 20 times their body length. That's like if you could jump over a whole building. Ethan scooped her up. That's amazing, baby. Did you have fun? So much fun. But I missed you, and I missed Gerald, and I missed my room. She looked at Vanessa. Did you miss me? Every day, Vanessa said honestly. Good, because I missed you too. Are you staying for dinner? If that's okay with your dad. Daddy always says yes when I ask if you can stay. I think he likes you. Ethan laughed. You think so, huh? I know so. You smile different when she's here. Like the smile goes all the way to your eyes instead of just your mouth. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. Ethan looked at Vanessa, who was trying not to cry. They had dinner together, spaghetti again, because Sophie insisted it was good luck. Afterward, Sophie showed Vanessa her entire dinosaur collection again, explaining each one's dietary habits and habitat preferences with the seriousness of a museum curator. When Sophie finally fell asleep, Ethan and Vanessa sat on the porch in the cold March air, watching the neighborhood settle into night. I start a new job Monday, Ethan said. Facilities manager at a nonprofit, day shift, better pay than janitorial, actual benefits. That's wonderful. How did you find it? Daniel Reeves recommended me to a friend of his, said I deserved a break after the last few weeks. You deserve more than a break. You deserve everything good. I've got everything good right here. Sophie's safe. You're here. That's enough. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about what I want to do next, now that I'm not running a corporation. And I want to start a foundation for working families, childcare assistance, legal aid, emergency rent support, all the things people like you needed but couldn't afford. I've got the trust fund. Might as well use it for something that matters. That's perfect. You'd be good at that. I'd need help. Someone who understands what these families actually need instead of what rich people think they need. Someone who's lived it. She looked at him. Would you help me build it? I'm not a nonprofit expert. No. But you're an expert on surviving, on fighting for what matters, on being the kind of person this foundation should serve and protect. That's more valuable than any MBA basque. Ethan thought about it, about using his experience to help other single parents who were drowning the way he'd been drowning, about turning all the hard years into something that mattered beyond just survival. Okay, Let's build something good together. Together. I like that word. Me too. They sat in silence, comfortable and tired and cautiously optimistic that maybe the worst was over. That maybe they'd survive the storm and come out the other side intact. 6 months later, Sophie started second grade. Ethan had been at the nonprofit for long enough to get promoted to director of operations. Vanessa's foundation launched with enough funding to help 50 families in its first year. They had an office in a building that wasn't falling apart, a staff of 5 people who actually cared about the work, and a mission statement Ethan had helped write. Everyone deserves dignity, regardless of circumstances. Sophie loved second grade. She made friends easily, the way kids do when they're confident their parents won't disappear. She brought home drawings of their family, always 3 people now, never 2. Ethan, Sophie, and Vanessa, usually doing something ordinary like having pancakes or reading books or playing with dinosaurs. Adrien Blackwood kept his word. He left them alone. Ethan saw him exactly once, at a charity gala Vanessa insisted they attend. Adrien nodded across the room. Ethan nodded back. That was the entire interaction. No words, just acknowledgement that they existed in the same city but different worlds, and that was okay. One Saturday in late September, when the air finally had that edge of fall sharpness, Ethan took Sophie and Vanessa to the park. They brought a picnic, sandwiches and fruit and cookies Mrs. Chen had made because she still insisted on feeding them, despite Ethan's improved financial situation. Sophie ran off to the swings immediately, leaving Ethan and Vanessa alone on the picnic blanket. I've been thinking about something, Vanessa said. Should I be worried? Maybe. Probably not. I don't know. She looked nervous, which was unusual. Vanessa didn't do nervous. I've been staying at that apartment downtown for 6 months now, and it's fine, but it doesn't feel like home. Nothing feels like home except your kitchen. My kitchen with the broken stove and the cabinets that don't close right? That exact kitchen. With the table where Sophie tells stories and you make terrible coffee, and I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She took a breath. I want to ask if I can stay. Permanently. Not as a guest. As someone who lives there. With you. With Sophie. As a family. Ethan looked at her. This woman who'd walked away from empire and expectation to sit on a picnic blanket eating Mrs. Chen's cookies and watching a 6-year-old on the swings. You know what you're signing up for, right? That house is small. The neighborhood's loud. Sophie will wake you up at 6 every morning because she doesn't believe in sleeping late. There's no staff, no driver, no private anything, just normal life with all its ordinary chaos. That's exactly what I want. Ordinary chaos with people I love. You love us? I love you, both of you. I have for a while. I just didn't know if it was okay to say it. It's okay to say it. Ethan pulled her closer. I love you too. Sophie loves you. And yes, you can move in. You can have the spare room, or you can share mine, or whatever feels right. We'll figure it out together. Together, Vanessa repeated. That's my favorite word now. Sophie ran back from the swings, breathless and excited. Daddy, Miss Vanessa, I just had the best idea. What if we got a dog? A big dog who could play fetch and sleep on my bed and be friends with Gerald. We'll think about it, Ethan said, which was parent speak for probably not, but I'm not saying no yet. That means yes, Sophie informed Vanessa confidently. When parents say, we'll think about it, it means yes, but later. I'll remember that, Vanessa said seriously. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the park. Sophie played. Ethan and Vanessa talked about the foundation, about small house repairs Ethan kept meaning to do, about whether they should really get a dog, or if Sophie would lose interest after a week. Normal conversations about normal life. As the sun started setting, they packed up to head home. Sophie held both their hands, swinging between them, singing a song she'd learned at school about autumn leaves and changing seasons. Ethan looked at this life he'd accidentally built. A job he didn't hate. A daughter who was thriving. A woman who chose him even when she could have chosen anything else. A future that felt possible instead of terrifying. It wasn't the life he'd planned. Wasn't the life he'd been taught to want. But it was real and honest and filled with people who cared about each other, for reasons that had nothing to do with what they could provide or who they were supposed to be. His mother used to say that life wasn't about having the most or being the best. It was about finding the people who made even the hard days worth living. She was right. She was right about most things. That night, after Sophie was asleep and Vanessa was unpacking boxes into the spare room that would become hers, Ethan stood in his small kitchen and made coffee. The stove still only had 2 working burners. The cabinet still didn't close all the way. The linoleum was still peeling. But Vanessa was humming in the other room. Sophie was safe in her bed with Gerald clutched to her chest. And for the first time in years, maybe the first time ever, Ethan Carter felt like he had everything that mattered. Not because life was perfect. Life was never perfect. Sophie would have bad days. The foundation would face challenges. Money would be tight sometimes. There would be struggles and setbacks and moments when everything felt impossible. But they'd face those moments together. As a family. As people who'd chosen each other not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And that choice, that simple, stubborn, impossible choice to care about each other despite every reason they shouldn't, made all the difference. Spring came early that year. By March, the last snow had melted and flowers started pushing through the hard ground in Mrs. Chen's garden. She showed Sophie how to plant tulip bulbs, explaining that you had to put them in the cold earth and trust they'd grow even when you couldn't see them yet. Sophie took this lesson very seriously. She planted 3 bulbs in the front yard, naming each one. This one's hope, this one's love, and this one's family. Those are big names for little flowers, Ethan said. They're going to be big flowers, Sophie said confidently. Mrs. Chen said so. She wasn't wrong. By April, 3 red tulips bloomed in front of the house with the broken porch light that Ethan had finally fixed. They weren't special flowers. Weren't rare or expensive or impressive to anyone, except the people who'd planted them. But they were theirs. They'd grown from cold earth into something beautiful, just like everything else in this strange, unexpected life. Ethan Carter, former janitor and current director of operations at a nonprofit that actually helped people. Vanessa Blackwood, former CEO and current foundation founder who'd traded empire for authenticity. Sophie Carter, 7 years old now, who believed that love and hope and family were worth naming flowers after. 3 people who'd found each other during the worst storm of the year and somehow built something worth keeping. The world still had its problems. Rich men still used power as a weapon. The system still favored those who already had everything. Kindness was still risky. Honesty was still costly. Love was still complicated. But sometimes, in small houses with broken stoves and planted tulips, and families built from choice rather than obligation, those problems felt manageable. Sometimes the act of just keeping going, of just choosing each other one more day, was its own form of revolution. And sometimes that was enough. Not perfect, not easy, not guaranteed, just enough. The tulips bloomed. Sophie started 3rd grade. Vanessa's foundation expanded to help 100 families. Ethan got promoted again. Mrs. Chen adopted a cat that Sophie named Professor Whiskers for reasons no one understood, but everyone accepted. Life happened, in all its messy, ordinary, beautiful complexity. And in a small house in a loud neighborhood in Chicago, 3 people who'd survived separate storms learned what it meant to be each other's shelter. That was the real story. Not the headlines or the drama or the billionaire versus janitor narrative that the internet loved. Just 3 people choosing each other every day, in small ways and big ways, in all the ways that mattered. Choosing love over empire, choosing truth over strategy, choosing each other over everything the world said they should want instead. And in the end, that choice made all the difference.